A creaking sound echoes from a dark, foreboding room. The source is a single, ominous door, locked and waiting in the oppressive darkness. A young man stands frozen, his gaze fixed on the terrifying entrance before him. A cold sweat breaks out as he stares, his mind consumed by a primal fear. His eyes lock onto the door, reflecting a terror that runs deeper than just the dark. Suddenly, the world flashes white, as his senses are completely overwhelmed. A woman asks why he's just standing there, reminding him he was supposed to turn on the light. "Is it that fear of the dark again?" she asks, a hint of concern in her voice. He can only explain. "My body just freezes up on its own, can't help it." She sighs. Knowing this crippling fear was so intense he even had to quit his job. She reminds him of their dire finances, her voice laced with disappointment. "I didn't quit. I got fired." He corrects her, the shame twisting his face. A heavy sigh escapes her lips, the weight of their situation settling between them. But her mood suddenly shifts to pure relief, celebrating the massive house his uncle left them. He forces a smile, promising her that life always finds a way and he'll get a new job immediately. Suddenly, their son bursts in with his dog, excitedly asking where his new room is. She points him towards the back of the house, to a room on the right. Without a second's hesitation, the boy and his dog sprint down the long, unfamiliar hallway. The parents watch him go, a moment of peace settling between them. But as the boy peeks inside his new room, his jaw drops in disbelief at its impossible size. "Nicholas, this is your room," the father says gently, offering him a choice in their new life. But the boy is absolutely thrilled, shouting, "No, I love it," as his dog wags its tail furiously. His excitement is boundless, and he immediately wants to explore the rest of the impossibly large house. The father watches him go, a quiet sense of hope finally settling in. But his wife's question breaks the silence. "What kind of person was your uncle?" She can't comprehend the immense generosity of Uncle Edmund, who left them this mansion, a home so vast, it's 5 times larger than anything they've ever known. He hesitates, admitting, "To be honest, I don't remember much about him either. All he knows is that his uncle was his mother's only family, someone who supposedly watched him grow. But his only real memory is a terrifying one, being held upside down by a man with a monstrous, inhuman face." His wife teases him about his childhood fears, calling him a scaredy cat. She then presses him for information, asking what his grandma revealed about the mysterious Uncle Edmund. He hesitates, clearly hiding something or unsure of what to say. Suddenly, their son Nicholas calls out, having discovered a strange, forbidden-looking door. He exclaims how old the door is, shaking it vigorously as their dog barks wildly. It's sealed shut with a heavy, rusted padlock, a clear sign it's not meant to be opened. But the boy finds a small gap, pressing his face against the wood to peer into the darkness beyond. Through the crack, only darkness is visible, but the dog erupts in a frenzy of terrified barking. The father rushes over in a panic, warning, "Nicholas, you're not supposed to open that door." But his wife joins them, her own curiosity piqued by the one place in this house that's locked away. The woman and her son are thrilled by the discovery of a basement, with the boy shouting "awesome." But the man's face twists in fear as he warns, "You mustn't open it." Ignoring him, his son cheers, "Let's open it and see." Suddenly, their dog erupts into a vicious frenzy, sensing a hidden danger. The man's terror finally explodes as he screams, "Don't open the basement door!" His family turns back, completely stunned by his violent outburst. Even the dog stops its barking, looking back with a confused whimper. Trembling, he repeats his dire warning that the door must never be opened. But his son simply asks the one question that matters. Why not? Caught completely off guard, the father can only stare back, utterly speechless. His wife presses him, "Why can't we open the basement door?" Cornered, he stammers, desperately searching for an excuse. A frantic memory surfaces of someone screaming, "The basement is crawling with rats." Later that night, under the cold light of the moon, the house falls silent. His wife and son are sound asleep, oblivious to the turmoil brewing within him. But he sits alone in the darkness, unable to escape his thoughts. His face is a mask of pure anguish as he stares at a letter from his past. It's a message from his grandmother, revealing a letter Edmund left for him upon his death. This triggers another memory of him as a child, asking about the mysterious Uncle Edmund. His grandmother's chilling words echo through time. He was a very special child. His grandmother recalls how Edmund caused trouble from a young age, dismantling everything from toys to audio equipment. He even messed with the refrigerator, forcing the family to throw out all their food. He then built a hideout inside the house, isolating himself until even his own father reached his limit. In the end, his grandfather completely destroyed Edmund's private sanctuary. That day, the relationship between the boy and his family was completely broken. "Kids are all like that," she says, before ominously adding that things got much worse when he became a student. He pushes back, confused. Mom always said Uncle Edmund was a genius. His grandmother smiles knowingly, confirming that his mother truly believed in her brother's brilliance. But she confesses that she also knew he wasn't just some foolish troublemaker. He was simply someone who was out of step with everyone else. Out of step? Jonathan repeats, trying to understand his uncle's strange nature. His grandmother presents a puzzle Edmund created at 11. Make 4 equilateral triangles with 6 matchsticks. I'm good at stuff like this, he declares, confidently tackling the challenge. But after failing completely, he looks up defeated, asking for the answer. She simply smiles, recalling what the young Edmund had said about it. In a flashback, the boy smirks. If you think the way ordinary people do, you'll never find the answer. His grandmother then reveals a hidden box, explaining Edmund left a letter that absolutely had to be given to him. The old envelope is addressed simply, to Jonathan Wells. He takes the mysterious letter, a heavy silence hanging in the air. His expression turns serious, knowing this could hold the key to everything. He reads the letter, and his uncle's final, chilling warning screams from the page. Never go down to the basement. Back in the present, the new house feels suffocating, every shadow hiding a terrible secret. His eyes are drawn to the one place he was forbidden to go, the heavily bolted basement door. The next day, the house stands deceptively peaceful under a bright, clear sky. With a strained smile, Jonathan announces to his family, "I'll be going now," but his wife immediately protests, questioning why he has to leave when they've only just moved in. He fumbles for an excuse, claiming it's the only day the person he's meeting is free. A flicker of uncertainty crosses his face as he seems to recall something important. His wife's expression hardens as she confronts him about his suspicious behavior. Ignoring him, she turns to their son with a final, ominous warning. Don't open the door for strangers. His mind drifts back to a strange photograph where his uncle's face was deliberately scratched out. He remembers asking his grandmother a simple question. How did Uncle die? She revealed the horrifying truth. He was stung to death by wasps, a death so brutal the coroner had never seen anything like it. Back in the present, the weight of that memory leaves him completely stunned. Desperate for answers, he had pressed further, asking if anyone else knew his uncle well. His grandmother then recalled a childhood friend Edmund saw often, a man who held the key to his past. The image of a large, imposing man suddenly flashes through his mind. He flinches, the name finally returning to him as he stands frozen before a door. Looking up at the intimidating figure, he hesitantly asks, Mr. Jean-Jules Brazel? The scene then cuts to a quiet teacup, a silent invitation into a past far more dangerous than he ever imagined. You could say Edmund Wells was a living mystery, the old friend begins, his words hanging heavy in the air. He reveals they studied biology together, but while he chose botany, Edmund's major was something far stranger, bacteria. Bacteria, the nephew mutters, the unsettling revelation sinking in. Brazel explains Edmund's research was to understand ancestors by studying cells at their most primitive stage. He believed one had to understand the very psychology of a single cell to comprehend humanity. The old man's gaze darkens as he struggles to find the right words to describe his friend's bizarre nature. He was a bit outside the norm, is the chilling understatement he finally offers. Lost in thought, he admits that the memory of his strange friend haunts him even more these days. Then, a crucial detail surfaces. Come to think of it, I heard Uncle Edmund was writing an encyclopedia, and a cryptic smile spreads across his face, hinting at a secret far deeper than just research. Back at the inherited house, a sudden doorbell echoes through the halls, signaling an unexpected visitor. Through the peephole, a shadowy figure waits as a cautious voice from inside asks, "Who is it?" A man with a chilling grin introduces himself. "My name is Gnu, I'm here about a bookbinding job." The young son, Nicholas, peeks through the crack in the door, his eyes wide with suspicion. But the scene shifts to a fragmented memory, recalling a tired man dismissing a similar visitor, saying, "Please come back another time." That man's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated terror, hiding a dark secret connected to the house. Then the memory jumps again, to a defiant young boy with a guard dog, a boy who could only be a young Uncle Edmund. Another bookbinder had come for him then, asking for Professor Wells and questioning if an adult was home. The boy tried to send him away, coldly stating his great-uncle had already passed away. But the man refused to leave, jamming his foot in the doorway, determined to force his way inside. The mysterious visitor offers fake condolences before asking about a large bundle of documents. From the shadows, a young Edmund watches him with intense suspicion. Back in the present, Brazel excitedly explains Edmund's ambitious idea to gather all knowledge into a single work. "Have you ever seen that encyclopedia?" the nephew asks, desperate for answers. Brazel simply smirks, his expression revealing he knows far more than he's letting on. The memory returns to the persistent bookbinder. who claims Professor Wells promised to visit but never showed. His face twists with menace as he demands a big red file folder he knows is inside. He called it the Encyclopedia of Relative and Absolute Knowledge, a name that echoes with forbidden power. The nephew repeats his question, hoping for a clue to this impossible legacy. No, Brazel replies with a grin. He must have hidden it away somewhere like a treasure. The nephew listens intently, processing the impossible idea of a hidden encyclopedia. A faint smile crosses his lips as he murmurs, "I see." Suddenly, a memory flashes of a door slamming shut as someone shouts they would have found it already. The menacing visitor outside could only tremble in silent, impotent fury. Back in the present, the nephew poses a familiar riddle about triangles and matchsticks, a test from the past. Of course, Brazel replies calmly. Edmund often used that to test people's intelligence. A spark of hope ignites in the nephew's eyes as he leans forward, believing he's found the key. But Brazel cruelly shuts him down, explaining, "I can't give you the answer. Edmund said so." His hopes are dashed by his uncle's final lesson. Everyone must find their own path. With one last gambit, he slides a mysterious item across the table, asking for help. Brazel examines the note, a final desperate plea for answers from the anxious nephew. He instantly recognizes the handwriting and the chilling warning. Never go down to the basement. Desperate, the nephew asks if he knows anything at all about this forbidden place. Brazel pauses, a heavy silence filling the room as he considers the question. But his hopes are crushed when Brazel claims to know nothing, leaving him at another dead end. Yet, as the nephew's despair deepens, his uncle's friend's tone suddenly shifts with a grave realization. If Edmund left that message, he warns with terrifying intensity, "You absolutely must obey it." The sheer force of the warning sends a shiver down his spine, hinting at a danger he can't comprehend. Meanwhile, back at the inherited house, an ominous presence seems to loom over the building, and inside, a mysterious sound echoes from the darkness as a door slowly creaks open on its own. Back at the house, a door suddenly begins to rattle violently on its own. The family dog, Warzazate, lets out a ferocious growl at an unseen presence. The rattling intensifies as the door cracks open, revealing a sliver of pure darkness. A moment later, the father looks around in confusion. Warzazade is gone. His son confirms the grim news, stating the dog is nowhere to be found. Trying to suppress his own rising panic, he urges his son to stay calm. But his son points towards the forbidden door with a horrifying realization. He went down into the basement. His wife spots the undeniable proof clumps of white fur piled right before the threshold. Desperate to deny the truth, he pleads with them, suggesting the dog simply went outside. But his son shatters that hope, screaming, "That's impossible. He definitely went down into the basement." His wife demands he use his old skills to open the lock immediately, but he refuses, stammering, "No, we're not supposed to go into the basement." Losing her patience, she screams back, "Why exactly not?" His son's desperate pleas echo around him. "Dad, are you scared?" The question triggers a horrifying memory, a chorus of stern voices screaming his name. "Jonathan!" His wife points to the gap in the door, insisting their dog definitely went inside. His eyes widen in pure, unadulterated terror as his phobia takes over. The darkness beyond the door seems to pulse with a life of its own. He's completely frozen, trembling in a void of his own making. His family calls out from the light, trying to pull him back from the brink. "Jonathan, come on!" The basement door looms before him, a gateway to his deepest fears. Paralyzed by a terror he can't explain, his mind begins to completely shut down. He forces a shaky smile, stammering a desperate suggestion to his family. "Let's look outside and call the shelter too," he pleads, trying to divert their attention from the one place he can't go. He then coldly suggests they can just get another dog, earning a horrified scream from his son. "Dad, how can you even say that?" the boy cries out in anguish. "Kors is my friend." His wife stares in disbelief, questioning his sanity. "Jonathan, are you in your right mind?" The question seems to snap him back to reality, his cold facade finally crumbling. "I understand that you're afraid of the dark," she says, taking control. "I'll go in. Just pick the lock for me." Her eyes narrow with grim determination as she gives him an ultimatum, "Or I'll just smash it open." Cornered by his wife's ultimatum, Jonathan stands defeated in the kitchen. He suddenly clenches his fist, a silent decision hardening within him. His eyes snap open with newfound resolve, declaring, "No, I'll go down there." His wife and son look on, stunned, as he claims he is the one who will protect this family. He unlocks the heavy padlock, the sound echoing with grim finality. Then, he arms himself with a heavy metal pipe, his expression turning deadly serious. Facing his family, he gives a chilling order: "Do not follow him, and do not call the police." His wife and son can only stare back, utterly bewildered by his strange command. He explains with panicked eyes that the police must never be allowed to enter that basement. She calls out his bizarre behavior, forcing him to stammer a weak, unconvincing excuse. He steels himself, knowing he can't reveal the truth about Uncle Edmund, as they're financially trapped. With a grim click, he locks the basement door from the inside, sealing himself in. He turns to face the oppressive darkness, the weight of his decision crashing down on him. Instantly, his crippling phobia takes hold, his eyes widening with pure, unadulterated terror. His hands begin to tremble violently as his heart pounds a frantic rhythm against his ribs. But through a crack in the door, his son's worried voice cuts through the silence. "Dad?" His wife screams his name. "Jonathan," desperately trying to pull him back from the edge. "Take a deep breath," she pleads, her voice a lifeline in the overwhelming dread. Through the sliver of light, she asks with a trembling voice, "You can get through this, right?" Taking a shaky breath, Jonathan fights to regain control, the fate of his family resting solely on his shoulders. His hand clenches around the pipe, a desperate grip against the encroaching fear. He takes one last, shuddering breath, steeling himself for what lies ahead. "Of course," he says, a flicker of resolve hardening his terrified eyes. Turning his back to his family, he offers a final reassurance. "Don't worry." With a final, grim glance over his shoulder, he commits to his decision. His wife and son can only watch from the crack in the door, their faces pale with dread. He then plunges into the oppressive abyss, a lone silhouette against the darkness. Behind him, his family watches in absolute horror, powerless to stop him. His footsteps echo as he descends the cold, stone stairs into the unknown. But something stops him cold as he stares ahead and thinks, "These stairs?" He descends into an impossibly deep darkness, wondering just how far the stairs go. The steps finally open into a vast, hidden cavern beneath the house. But something is already here, a massive, dormant shape looming in the shadows. A joint begins to creak and bend, breaking an eon of silence. A limb slowly, deliberately extends, testing its newfound strength. It plants itself firmly on the ground, a sign that the long slumber is over. Because right now, the ancient creatures hibernating in the darkness are beginning to wake. Their hardened blood softens and flows as their hearts begin to beat once more. Complex joints, perfectly preserved, start to turn after centuries of stillness. And in the vast cavern, the first 12 giant ants awaken to a new world. Their mission is simple: awaken the colony and venture into the outside world to gather precious heat energy. They claw their way through the earth, driven by an ancient, unyielding instinct. After a long journey through darkness, the first scout finally breaks through to the blinding light of the surface. But this is no mere anthill. It's a sprawling metropolis of 18 million souls, 100 levels deep. Its functional tunnels stretch for an impossible 120 kilometers, a hidden empire beneath the soil. All of this power, this civilization, is contained within a mere 2 square meters of land. This is the great fire ant city known only as Belokon. The first 12 to awaken bear the heavy burden of restarting their entire world after the long winter. Yet among them is a single, unique male, the only one capable of ensuring the future of their species. He is not a king or a warrior, he is simply designated number 327. Number 327 gently shares his warmth, rousing a sleeping worker from its slumber. The worker awakens, reaching out its antennae to identify the one who disturbed it. Through this silent language, it learns his age, a mere 170, 3 days old. But the second segment reveals a shocking truth: his rank is that of a fertile male. He is a forest fire ant from the mother city Belokon, identified by his unique egg number. This number becomes his name, for he was the 327th egg laid since early autumn. He is male ant 327, a being of immense importance to the colony's future. Like the others, his duty is to awaken his kin and repair the great city of Belokon. While carrying a branch 60 times his own weight, his routine is suddenly interrupted. A soldier ant approaches with a dangerous proposal. "Come hunting with me." "Hunting what?" 327 asks, wary of the soldier's dangerous proposal. The soldier reveals a hidden stash of meat found before winter, its location a closely guarded secret. The target is a delicacy of immense value to the colony: fresh leaf, beetle meat. But 327 objects, knowing beetles should be deep in hibernation, a simple fact of nature. The soldier explains the meat comes from a special place, an area kept unusually warm by groundwater. It is a land where the seasons hold no power, a place where there is no winter there. Intrigued by this impossible oasis, 327 finally agrees to the dangerous mission. "I'll go with you." And so, from the great city of Belokon, a new expedition is about to begin. As the new season dawns, 28 chosen explorers gather for the glorious first hunt. The party sets out, their movements revealing they are veterans of long-distance travel. Among them are battle-scarred warriors, their bodies, weapons of war, and then there's me, the only reproductive ant. They march into a vast, misty forest, a land shrouded in mystery. For hours on end, their relentless advance continues through the towering blades of grass. They pass several sister cities of the Ni dynasty, all part of a grand federation. First, they pass Odulubekan, a city renowned for producing the most grain. Then Juliekan, whose brave soldiers once conquered the southern termite cities 2 years ago. They even pass Zedibinakan, a chemical lab that produces highly concentrated battle-grade formic acid. And finally, Libyukan, where they ferment honeydew into a potent resin-flavored alcohol. Their federation is young, only 50,000 years since the first dynasty was founded. It all began with their first queen, who was lost in a terrible storm until she found this very place. From the first city of Belokan, hundreds of generations of queens built the mighty federation that exists today. The expedition now passes Lasolakan, the westernmost city, and approaches a small, unassuming mound. This quiet patch of grass will soon become a battlefield, for just north lies their true target. The enemy city, Shigafu, looms in the distance. They should still be asleep for the winter, the leader commands, urging them to march on without stopping. But their guiding scent trail suddenly vanishes, forcing them to follow faint tracks on the ground. A piercing scream shatters the silence of their advance. One of their own is caught, ensnared by the sticky, glowing trap of a deadly plant. "We have to save him," a soldier cries out in a panic. But a veteran delivers the chilling truth. Once caught by a sundew, rescue is impossible. Unable to save their comrade, the ants can only leave a pheromone warning for others about the carnivorous plant. As their brother is slowly dissolved, the leader gives the harsh command to keep moving west, abandoning him to his fate. With cold discipline, the soldiers march on, their focus locked forward despite the lingering danger. But one of them suddenly stops, its antennae twitching, as it detects a new, unfamiliar scent on the wind. The pheromone isn't from an enemy or a trap, it marks the hidden entrance to a dark cave. This is it, they realize, finally arriving at their destination as they descend into the pitch-black opening. Inside, they find not a nest, but a mysterious body of water steaming in the darkness. It's a hot spring, and the exhausted soldiers, including number 327, finally allow themselves a moment of relief. But their peace is shattered, as the spring begins to violently tremble and churn without warning. A colossal, dark sphere erupts from the depths, leaving the terrified ants asking, "What is that?" The terrifying sphere is revealed to be a simple dung beetle, and the ants are ordered to stand down. They let the worthless prey pass, as its foul taste and heavy shell make it a pointless hunt. But their relief is cut short as a new target, an earwig, emerges from the shadows. "That one tastes good," a soldier roars, launching himself forward in a blur of motion. He lands a devastating strike that shatters the creature's armor, causing it to shriek in agony. The swarm immediately descends upon their prey, tearing into the delicious meat with brutal efficiency. As they feast, they realize this warm spring is a perfect hunting ground, keeping countless creatures active. Suddenly, a tremendous force crushes their prize from above, and the ants freeze in shock. A monstrous, bat-like creature with terrifying glowing eyes descends, dwarfing everything in the cavern. "Oh, that's it," one ant exclaims, finally recognizing the true apex predator of this domain. The monstrous bat dives, its glowing eyes promising a swift and brutal end. The sheer force of its descent sends the ant soldiers scattering like pebbles. "How are we supposed to stop that monster's attack?" One soldier screams in terror, but number 327 declares the creature is just bluffing, afraid they'll invade its territory. "Everyone, fire formic acid at the bat," he commands, his body glowing with power. The acid barrage connects, and the apex predator lets out an agonized screech. The 40% concentration is a corrosive agent, forcing even this massive creature to flee. For the next few days, the 27 Belokan ants explore the now uncontested caves. They gather food and plant a flag of conquest, spraying pheromones from their anal glands. This chemical trail marks the newly claimed territory of the Belokan Federation. The season's first expedition of 28 ants successfully expands their hunting grounds beyond the western thicket. Journeying back through the dense, sun-drenched forest, a new pressure begins to mount on the victorious party. "Let's hurry," one ant urges. "We have to reach the city before sunset." Once night falls and the temperature drops, the cold will render their bodies completely stiff. They work tirelessly from March to October, but the cold is their one great weakness, forcing them into a deep slumber. This is why expeditions lasting more than a day are so rare, a deadly gamble for even the bravest soldiers. But their return is halted by the discovery of a strange, glowing plant pulsing with an unknown energy. An ambitious ant suggests they bring it to the queen, sparking a pheromone debate among the ranks. Others argue against it, claiming it's too much trouble and could cost them their lives if handled incorrectly. But the potential is undeniable. If they could control carnivorous plants, it would become a great power for the entire Federation. The heated debate ends as the leader commands, "Enough, call back the pheromones." With their bodies exhausted and the sun setting fast, time is running out. They make the difficult choice to abandon the dangerous carnivorous plant and retreat. The weary soldiers march on, leaving the potential power source behind. But as they travel, the winged male, number 327, spots something else. He discovers a beautiful, unknown flower, unlike anything he has ever seen. A new ambition sparks within him, believing the Queen Mother will be pleased. Deciding to take this new prize, he declares they will take this one instead. He plucks the flower, confident in the praise he'll receive, and rushes to rejoin the group. But just as he does, a violent tremor rocks the ground, throwing them all into chaos. He returns from his brief detour, only to find a scene of utter devastation, his comrades lying motionless on the ground. What's happening? He wonders in sheer panic, trying to comprehend the silent massacre before him. Surrounded by the bodies of his entire unit, he trembles, asking just what in the world happened here. He realizes they were wiped out instantly, still frozen in their snakehead battle formation. They never even had time to release an alarm pheromone, a completely one-sided slaughter. Desperate for answers, he reaches for a dead soldier's antenna, hoping for some residual information. But there's nothing at all. A complete informational void that makes this even more terrifying. Just as he's about to give up, he spots a strange white substance on the dead soldier's mandibles. Driven by instinct, he tastes the mysterious residue, hoping for any kind of clue. Suddenly, male ant 327 begins shaking his antennae at 300 vibrations per second, processing the hidden data. He pushes his antennae to 2000 vibrations per second, desperately searching for a signal. The white substance on his mandibles is the only clue to his comrade's slaughter. At ultra-high speed, a world of tiny particles unfolds around him, revealing the unseen truth. He sifts through the data, identifying pollen, spores, and the faint scent of dew. But amongst the noise, something is disturbingly familiar, a scent he can't quite place. I've smelled this before, he thinks, pushing his antennae to a staggering 12,000 vibrations per second. The intense frequency creates a tiny suction current, pulling every particle in the air towards him for analysis. And in that instant, his entire world shatters as the horrifying truth hits him. Dwarf ants from Shigafu in the north, he realizes in terror, questioning if they've already woken from their sleep. They must have used a lightning-fast new weapon to ambush and wipe out his entire unit in an instant. I have to warn the others right away, he thinks, fleeing the horrifying massacre of his comrades. His mind flashes back 10,000 years, to the fire ant queen of the lost god dynasty, Bistenga. She sent out hundreds of expeditions toward 4 key directions, obsessed with finding the world's end. But not a single party ever returned from the vast, deadly unknown. The current queen, Velo Kyukyuni, is not nearly so greedy. She is content to discover a small golden beetle, and to observe carnivorous plants, hoping they might someday be tamed. But she knows that to learn a new region, the Federation must expand into it. This means constant war against anything that blocks their territorial growth. Conquering the world is a distant dream, but their philosophy is absolute, slowly, but always forward. As the sun sets on a brutal battlefield, a new day of horror begins. Queen Velokyukyuni's 327th male ant is the sole survivor after his comrades were slaughtered on their very first expedition. Gripped by a primal fear, he races in panic back toward the safety of his home city. On this day, home feels especially dear as he scrambles through the undergrowth. But it also feels impossibly far as he wonders how the Shigafu dwarf ants could have ambushed them. How could they have possibly woken from their winter sleep so early in the season? He shudders, thinking of what kind of terrifying new weapon they must have created. A power that could butcher 26 of his comrades in an instant, without a single trace. He desperately asks himself, will I make it back to my city, where Mother is? With no other choice, he runs only toward home, a lone messenger of a coming war. A blinding light pierces the suffocating darkness of the basement. He gasps for air, the sudden glare overwhelming his senses as his deepest fears awaken. Gripping a pipe, he trembles, his phobia clawing at his mind in the suffocating silence. Every shadow seems to twist into the monster from his past, threatening to consume him. You can't let fear swallow you, he forces himself to say, fighting for control. He pushes forward into the unknown, one shaky step at a time. His voice cracks as he screams for his lost dog. Oh Zazat! He runs deeper, his desperate cries echoing through the empty tunnels. But as one search begins, another ends as a familiar scent lures a lone survivor home. Number 327, the sole messenger of a coming war, has finally returned to Belacan. He stares up at the towering silhouette of his home, a monument of earth and will. The city of Belacan stands magnificent under the full moon, its construction nearly complete. But from within, a guard's voice echoes. "Come in, quickly," as the cold night air descends. The city gates are being sealed to shut out the chill, leaving no room for stragglers. With his last ounce of strength, number 327 cries out, wait a second." He collapses just short of the entrance, his body trembling with utter exhaustion. The guard scoffs at the sight, dismissing him as just some lost drifter ant. But the battered soldier gasps, "I'm a Belocan ant, same as you." The guard recoils, shocked by his terrible condition and the overwhelming reek of fatigue. Sensing his desperation, a worker ant approaches, offering to share its food with the dying messenger. Male ant 327 accepts the aid, his body on the verge of seizing up as he can barely stand. The worker ant passes on life-saving food from its social stomach, a crucial act of solidarity. With renewed strength, he gratefully whispers, "Ah, you saved my life." But he immediately rushes off to report the disaster, screaming, "Something terrible has happened. Emergency! It's war!" His frantic arrival startles the other ants, who demand to know what's happening. He delivers the grave news. The dwarf ants wiped out the first expedition with a deadly, highly effective new weapon. The command is given instantly, a powerful voice roaring, "Battle stations! War has begun!" Panic spreads as the colony learns the expedition was annihilated in an instant by some unknown power. But skepticism rises from the crowd, a single cold voice cutting through the chaos with one word. Proof? He stands alone before the entire colony, now challenged to prove his terrifying story is even true. "Where did this supposedly happen?" a commander demands, putting him on the spot. He explains the massacre occurred west of Lasalakan, a known patrol route for the enemy. But the crowd roars back, "Impossible! Our informant said the dwarf ants are still asleep." Their faith in their own spies is absolute, and they refuse to believe the reports could be wrong. The doubt quickly turns to mockery, accusing him of being so exhausted he's just seeing things. Others dismiss his warning as nonsense, claiming a spring war this early would be insane. For male ant 327, the sole survivor, their blatant denial is utterly absurd. "So you're saying I made up the whole massacre?" he pleads, his voice cracking with desperation. He begs them to just check the numbers in each rank, to see the proof of their missing comrades. But his warning is completely ignored as the colony turns its back, leaving him alone to face the coming storm. "This is insane, no one believes me," he thinks, his world crumbling around him. He can't even make them see the simple, obvious fact that they are all about to die. But his despair hardens into resolve, vowing, "I will wake my people, no matter what." His pleas are met with scorn as another ant dismisses him. "All you're doing is making noise." Cast out and ignored, the lone prophet walks away from the colony he tried to save. Meanwhile, in a different world, a cold metal door holds its own terrible secrets. A woman stands vigil, her back rigid with tension as she stares at the sealed basement. Her son's voice trembles. "It's been 4 hours, should we call the police?" The mother's face is a mask of grim silence, her worry escalating into pure dread. And from the past, a chilling message is penned, a prophecy of discovery and a warning that it may come too soon. A man from the past writes a grim warning, knowing the outcome could be horrifying. He fights to protect his secret, but accepts that sooner or later, his story must be told. Because no matter how deep a secret is buried, time will always bring it to the surface. "By the time you read this," he writes, "I will probably have been dead for 10 years, or perhaps for 100. With a final flourish of his pen, he signs his name, sealing his message across the decades. His legacy is a massive tome, the Encyclopedia of Relative and Absolute Knowledge by Edmund Wells. This was his solitary world, a man alone in the dark with a terrible burden. Meanwhile, the lone ant prophet despairs, muttering, "No one believes a word I say." But even in his isolation, a fire of resolve burns in his eyes, refusing to accept defeat. "I'll tell the queen," he declares, resolving to report the impending doom directly to Velokiokiuni. He knows Mother has survived 14 winters, possessing a wisdom far beyond that of ordinary ants. "She will understand and listen to me," he cries, certain that she alone will recognize the truth. He pushes into a passage where thousands of workers haul eggs from the deep nest to the sunlit nursery. Slipping past the endless column, he enters a small side tunnel, a direct path to the queen. Though the tunnel is pitch black, his infrared vision cuts through the darkness, guiding him forward. The closer he gets to the restricted zone, the stronger the queen's scent becomes, and the more guards he sees. But he carries the scent that acts as a pass, allowing him to move through the checkpoints unchallenged. He finally reaches the last corridor, the final barrier leading directly to Mother's chamber. "You may pass," the guard says, and with a quiet thanks, he steps toward his destiny. He gasps, suddenly overwhelmed by an immense, suffocating presence. The air itself crackles with a power that dwarfs his own, a pressure he has never felt before. This is the scent of the city's only egg layer, the one who gave life to every ant in the colony. She is a queen who waged countless wars and conquered the southern termite cities. A record-breaking survivor and, most importantly, the mother of male ant 327. Before him stands Velokyukyukyuni, the legendary queen of the central fire ant city. Her features are alien and ancient, with a loyal nurse ant always ready at her side. The nurse carefully receives a precious substance, the key to the colony's future. He uses his senses to identify the males and non-reproductive soldiers, all waiting for the queen's command. Soon, she will lay eggs for every rank, replenishing the city's strength for the wars to come. The queen's voice echoes through the chamber with a simple command. Come closer. Male ant 327, the lone survivor, cautiously approaches the colossal figure of his mother. With a gentle touch, she heals his wounds, her voice softening. My child has come. She welcomes him back to the womb of his people, a prodigal son who could never truly leave. He was their explorer, their eyes and legs, and now he has returned to awaken them from their slumber. A wave of relief washes over him as he exclaims, Mother, you believe what I say. She acknowledges his certainty, her gaze unwavering, but her next word hangs heavy in the air. However, the problem is that you cannot be the one to awaken our people. Your pheromones have failed to persuade anyone. She sees right through him, knowing he came to her because he believed only the queen could reveal the truth. But as he processes her words, her very essence reveals a terrifying secret to his senses. Death. The inexplicable and the undeniable scent of war. The queen looks down on the lone survivor, her words casting doubt on his dire warning. Whether what you say is true or not, she declares, I cannot decide anything by myself. She explains that in their city, every major decision requires a firm, unanimous agreement. But he desperately insists this is their most urgent threat, demanding they send spies to uncover the enemy's secret weapon. The queen coldly dismisses his plea, stating there is a mountain of things they must treat as top priority. The colony is still waking from its winter sleep, and the city's defenses are only just beginning to be repaired. On top of that, their people are starving, in desperate need of protein and sugar to survive. With a festival of new life to prepare for, she concludes they simply don't have enough ants to spare. Frustration washes over him, but just as he sighs in defeat, his antennae twitch, sensing something new. His unique senses detect a strange, growing presence nearby, a new variable in this deadly equation. Number 327 stands silently as the queen reveals a completely different priority. If we build a fence of these carnivorous plants, she declares, we could defend our entire northwestern border. He stares back in shock, unable to comprehend her logic. But even the queen admits there is one critical problem to solve with this deadly plan. These little monsters still cannot tell the difference between city residents and outside intruders. Mother, he interrupts, his voice shaking, what about the comrades who died on that expedition? Her gaze turns cold as she demands to know how many ants that accident actually killed. 27, he replies, as she clarifies they were all just a subclass of soldier ants. He confirms this, reminding her that he was the only male ant among the fallen. With a heavy thud, the queen turns her back, the discussion brutally cut short. As if his words meant nothing, the queen begins laying a new egg. Number 327 watches in stunned silence, his plea for justice utterly disregarded. She lays 27 new eggs, one for each soldier who died, replacing them as if they were mere tools. Defeated, he says nothing more, realizing there is nothing he can do. He turns his back on his queen and marches away into the darkness of the tunnels. Alone with his thoughts, the memory of his fallen comrades fuels a growing fire within him. No, he thinks, his resolve hardening. It can't end like this. He must find out what new weapon the dwarf ants used, even if he has to do it alone. But her words echo in his mind. His pheromones are too weak to convince anyone. The crushing weight of his powerlessness threatens to break his spirit completely. He steels his resolve, thinking, I'll convince them somehow. He bursts into the tunnels, desperately shouting a warning about the ambush that wiped out his entire expedition. But his pleas are met with utter contempt, as the workers dismiss him as a noisy distraction from their duties. They turn their backs on him, leaving him completely isolated in the dark tunnels. This can't be, he thinks, the crushing reality of his powerlessness finally sinking in. He trembles in despair, realizing no one will listen to his warnings about the coming slaughter. Yet, a flicker of determination remains. He knows he must find another way to warn them. He pushes forward through the darkness, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. Suddenly, he freezes, Realizing the strange limping sound he's been hearing means he's being tailed. His antennae twitch, analyzing the air and revealing the identity of his follower, a young soldier ant. But as he confronts his follower, a strange scent fills the air, different from any Bolokan ant he knows. His senses pinpoint the impossible odor, the smell of rock itself. The young soldier suddenly freezes, its body tensing in alarm. "Who's there?" it calls out, sensing another presence in the oppressive darkness. It then whirls around to face him, demanding, "Why are you following me?" Before he can respond, a menacing red silhouette emerges from the shadows ahead. A wave of pure dread washes over number 327 as his instincts scream at him to get away. The terrifying intruder looms over the small soldier, its form radiating pure malice. His worst fears are confirmed as he realizes, this one smells like rock too. In a flash, the enemy strikes down the confused soldier, leaving number 327 paralyzed in shock. "They're all around me already," he screams, as the terrifying red silhouette has him completely cornered. He desperately tries to reason with the attacker, shouting, "I'm one of you. I'm from the same city as you." The massive ant pins him down as he pleads, "You're making a mistake. I'm not the enemy." He insists his identity is clear, stating plainly, "My pheromones prove it." But the silent assassin simply looms over him, its intentions terrifyingly unclear. A horrifying realization dawns on him. This one, he's scrubbing the scent off my body. "No," he cries, knowing that without his smell, he is nothing, he doesn't exist. His strength fails as his wings are crushed, and he wonders in despair, "Is this how I die?" He screams one last question. "Why are you trying to erase me from the world?" Just as he feels himself fading away, the entire world begins to violently shake from a sudden earthquake. A strange broadcast fills the air, a robed figure questioning the world's violence amidst a backdrop of fire and ruin. As the young son Nicholas watches, a voice preaches unity, declaring, "We are all children of the earth and of God." The program suddenly clicks off, revealed to be a religious mission's 45th day on air, but the boy is terrified, crying out that his dad has been trapped in the basement for 8 agonizing hours. His mother stands frozen, her silence screaming with a terrible, unspoken fear for her husband. Finally, her patience shatters as she declares, "That's it, I can't wait anymore." She resolves to call the police, only for a chilling voice to warn her not to use the phone. The father emerges from the darkness, covered in blood and filth, casually saying, "You didn't need to be worried." His wife stares in disbelief, unable to process his state as she screams, "Look at yourself right now." And as the reality of what he's become sinks in, their son lets out a soul-shattering scream. He holds the bloody remains of their dog, whispering its name, Warzazate. His son reaches out, screaming the pet's name in pure, unadulterated agony. "Please, snap out of it," the boy cries, terrified of the stranger his father has become. But the man remains unresponsive, and his son collapses to the floor in despair. His eyes are completely vacant, a chilling emptiness reflecting the horrors of the basement. His wife can only stare, her mind struggling to process the gruesome sight. Over the sound of her son's heart-wrenching sobs, she finally finds her voice. "What on earth happened down there in the basement?" she demands, her own voice trembling. Suddenly, the father's body begins to tense, a strange power surging through his veins. A dark, chilling smile spreads across his face, revealing the monster that has taken his place. The wife trembles, her body rigid with fear and disbelief at the man her husband has become. Before them lies the mangled body of their beloved dog, a brutal testament to the basement's horror. Their son can only weep, his small body racked with sobs for his lost friend. But the father kneels, his voice chillingly calm. "Tomorrow, let's take him to the cemetery for dogs." Through his tears, the boy agrees, believing his father is trying to do the right thing for their pet. Then, the man's next words shatter the fragile moment. "And after that, we'll bring home another dog." His wife stares, completely stunned by his callous and immediate suggestion to replace their family member. Her shock quickly hardens into suspicion as she studies the cold, unfamiliar man before her. The last of her fear burns away, replaced by a fiery, protective anger for her grieving son. She locks eyes with him, her voice dangerously low. "What's down there?" The man who returned from the basement simply looks away, his face a cold, emotionless mask. "There's nothing," he insists with a chilling emptiness. "Nothing at all." But his wife stands her ground, refusing to accept the blatant lie. "Do you have any idea what you look like right now?" she screams, her fear finally boiling over into rage. She points to their pet's mutilated corpse, crying out that he looks like he went through a meat slicer. Her voice cracks with grief as she demands the one answer that matters. What happened to Awarzazate? From the doorway, their son can only watch and weep, trapped in his family's waking nightmare. Jonathan suddenly collapses to his knees, clutching his head in a desperate performance of pain. He spins a tale of vicious rats, claiming a swarm of them tore their poor dog to pieces. "Then what about you?" she asks. But the inhuman grin spreading across his face is the only answer she needs. His wife's fury burns while their son weeps, trapped in the unfolding horror. Jonathan continues his pathetic lie, claiming the rats were simply scared of him. "That makes no sense," she screams, demanding to know why he was gone for 8 whole hours. Her rage finally boils over into one terrifying question. What the hell is in that damned basement? The little boy turns away, tears streaming down his face as his family shatters. His eyes widen in pure shock, forever scarred by the man his father has become. But then, Jonathan's story changes completely, admitting he never even reached the end. His wife freezes, the impossible confession silencing her rage with utter disbelief. "No," he says with a chilling emptiness. "It just kept going down and down." He reveals that even after 8 hours, the basement was endless, a truth so absurd it finally breaks her. Jonathan claims he stopped after finding the dog, saying Warzazate fought back with everything he had. He praises the small dog's incredible bravery as his family listens in stunned silence. But his wife presses him, demanding to know exactly where in that endless darkness he stopped. He deflects, falling back on his crippling fear, admitting, "I couldn't go any farther." He insists that any normal person would have turned back from such a terrifying, pitch-black void. With a chilling calm, he says he only stopped for them because it felt like walking straight into death. His manipulative words finally seem to land, leaving his wife and son speechless with grief. He pulls her into a tight embrace, a silent promise that the nightmare is finally done. "Let's seal this door up tight," he whispers, trying to bury the basement secret forever. But then his entire demeanor shifts as he coldly declares, "No, it's not over." His wife stares in disbelief as he raises a hand. His entire demeanor changed. He explains there was a point stained in red where any normal person would have stopped. All their son can do is weep, traumatized by the bloody sight of his dead pet. "I was terrified," Jonathan insists, playing on his old fears one last time. But his eyes glint with a dark resolve as he declares, "But I can't stop here." She recoils in horror, asking if he actually intends to go back down there. "Yes," he answers coldly, revealing it's the same path his Uncle Edmund took. The name hangs in the air, leaving her utterly stunned by the implication. He's become obsessed, vowing he has to uncover what his uncle did in that darkness. His wife is left completely frozen, staring at the stranger her husband has become. His wife makes one last desperate plea. "If you love us, then don't go down there again." Their son's terrified screams echo her words, "Don't go down." But Jonathan's expression remains cold and unmoved by their anguish. Standing over the bloody remains of their pet, he simply states, "There's no other way." He begins a dark monologue, admitting he's always been pathetic and weak whenever he sensed danger. He's never seen a dangerous task through to the end, nor has he ever truly succeeded at anything. All his life choices, from his safe job to his quiet neighborhood, now feel like massive regrets. He claims he dodged every hard thing in life, turning into a clueless kid who doesn't understand the world. "You're talking nonsense," his wife says, trying to break through his twisted logic. But with a chilling finality, he declares, "It's not nonsense, you can't live in a cocoon forever." He declares the basement is his chance to break free, vowing he won't spend his life staring at a coward in the mirror. His wife stares back in stunned silence, horrified by the man her husband has become. She grits her teeth, making a desperate offer. "Fine, then let me go with you." He coldly refuses, declaring, "This is my task, my road to walk. No one is allowed to interfere," he commands, demanding she understand his unshakable resolve. He then turns to his crying son, gently trying to calm him by offering a riddle. But the boy can only sob, his face a mask of pure terror and heartbreak. He presents the riddle of the 6 matchsticks, a puzzle that requires thinking outside the box. "You have to think a different way," he insists, a strange intensity in his eyes. And for a brief moment, the riddle was enough to distract the boy from his overwhelming shock and sorrow. But the riddle did nothing to calm his furious wife, Lucy. That evening, their argument escalated into a bitter, shadowy confrontation. Yet Jonathan remained silent, refusing to reveal a single secret about the horrors in the basement. The next day, he repaired the iron door, sealing it shut with a heavy padlock. He then hung the only key around his neck, claiming sole ownership of the path ahead. His family could only watch in stunned silence, their faces etched with worry and despair. The door was now an impassable barrier, a tomb he intended to enter alone. But elsewhere, the lone survivor, number 327, is ambushed by monstrous assassins from his own kind. He slammed into the ground with overwhelming force in a completely one-sided fight. The assassin grips his head, ready to crush him and erase his very existence. The assassin pins him down, ready to deliver the final, crushing blow. With a single, devastating strike, it sends number 327 hurtling through the air. He slams violently into the ground, the sheer force of the impact rattling his entire body. But as he looks up in confusion, a deep rumble from below stops the assassin in its tracks. The entire ground begins to tremble violently, catching everyone completely by surprise. Massive cracks splinter across the earth as the world itself starts to break apart. A sudden earthquake collapses the city, swallowing countless ants into a dark abyss. The air fills with the overwhelming pheromones of pure, unadulterated fear. But while others fall to their doom, number 327 unfurls his hidden wings. He hovers in the chasm, watching helplessly as his brethren scream and plummet into darkness. He realizes the quake saved him from the assassin, only to plunge the entire colony into a deadlier emergency. The air thickens with the pheromones of pure terror as every ant signals the overwhelming danger. He's filled with regret, knowing he should have been the one to sound this very warning. But there's no time for guilt as he zips through the collapsing tunnels, dodging falling debris. With his colony on the brink of annihilation, he pushes his wings to their absolute limit. Landing amidst the chaos, he immediately takes command, shouting, "Workers, move the eggs to a safe zone." He then rallies the warriors, ordering the soldiers to assemble by battle unit immediately. With the chain of command shattered, the lone reproductive male becomes their only hope. He stands before the remaining soldiers, a makeshift leader born from disaster, readying them for what's next. And then, a sudden, deafening silence falls as the shaking stops, leaving him to wonder if the nightmare is truly over. The survivors stare up at the cavern ceiling, sensing a new, terrifying threat from above. Suddenly, a deafening cracking sound echoes through the tunnels as the roof begins to splinter apart. A blinding light erupts as a soldier screams in terror. Someone is breaking through the city's roof. A colossal object pierces their world, blasting soldiers away with its sheer, unstoppable force. As the ceiling shatters, a panicked cry goes out amongst the chaos. What's coming into the city? A massive, fleshy pillar smashes through the ground, crushing everything and everyone in its path. The horrifying truth is revealed. It's the leg of a monstrous, unknown creature of impossible scale. The colossal invader continues its rampage, its body becoming a battlefield for the swarming ants. Its sheer size is overwhelming, a force of nature tearing their entire home apart. But a commander rallies the survivors, roaring to his soldiers, "Brave soldiers of our noble queen, attack!" The fleshy limb whips through the air, flinging ant soldiers away like dust in a hurricane. Warriors are smashed against the walls with bone-shattering force, their bodies breaking on impact. The monstrous appendage moves with impossible speed, a pink blur of absolute destruction. Panicked screams of a monster echo through the tunnels as the ants face an incomprehensible threat. A commander desperately tries to rally his troops, screaming for everyone to take cover, but it's already too late. Another soldier is instantly obliterated, swatted aside without a second thought by the invading force. Suddenly, the monster's attention turns to the colony's only hope, the winged male, number 327. He gasps as the limb smashes down, the sheer pressure wave nearly tearing him apart. A strange, unknown substance splatters across his face, a horrifying contact with the alien invader. But just as he freezes, a fellow soldier shoves him to safety, roaring, "Run, you idiot!" In a final act of sacrifice, number 327 desperately raises the emergency alert, screaming for everyone to run for their lives. He looks up in absolute terror, frozen by the sheer scale of the descending threat. A massive, fleshy pink appendage slams down, a blur of unstoppable, world-ending destruction. It instantly crushes another soldier, splattering him into nothing before the survivors' horrified eyes. They get a horrifying glimpse into a monstrous maw with glowing red eyes, ready to devour them all. Staring in disbelief, the ants finally recognize their foe, gasping, "Thuh, that is." The invader is identified not as a monster, but a gray-headed woodpecker. This creature's territory spans entire continents, from the forests of Western Europe all the way to Japan, a natural predator of immense size and power. And to this giant, their entire civilization is nothing more than a favorite meal. The colossal woodpecker lets out a deafening shriek, its eye glowing with predatory hunger. Its beak slams down like a meteor, sending the ant soldiers scattering in pure terror. An ant watches helplessly as its comrade is instantly snatched from the ground. The beak pulls back, dripping with the remains of dozens of warriors, a gruesome testament to its power. It rears its head back, the ground trembling as it prepares for another world-ending strike. The creature's eye, a void of blackness and red light, promises only annihilation. Its beak carves a path of destruction, wiping out entire platoons in a single, devastating sweep. Amidst the chaos, a soldier screams out a desperate warning, "Emergency! Level 3 alert!" The The signal ripples through the colony, a level 3 alert that signifies a threat to their very existence. The order is given. Eggs down, soldiers up. The colony scrambles to save its future and face the impossible foe. A commander roars the order. Gunner ants, assemble and target the giant monster's throat. Swarms of soldiers scale the colossal beast, ignoring the sheer terror of its presence. On command, they unleash a coordinated volley of acid, shouting fire in unison. Their attack erupts in a blinding flash, searing through the monster's tough exterior. The colossal creature freezes, its eye wide with shock and unexpected pain. It thrashes wildly, letting out an ear-splitting shriek that shakes the very ground. But the ants are relentless, their commander screaming, "Keep firing," as they press the attack. A continuous barrage melts away feathers and flesh, aiming for a critical weakness. Suddenly, the order changes. The nerves are exposed. Cease fire. With the weak point revealed, the commander lunges forward, bellowing, "Bite," and tear it open wider. The beast lets out a final, agonizing screech as the attack connects. It thrashes wildly, feathers flying as it tries to shake off the relentless soldiers, but its massive body crashes hard against the tree trunk, momentarily stunned and vulnerable. The commander issues a new, insane order. Find a way into the inside of the giant monster. He spots the exposed wound, screaming, "Over here! Charge into the monster's guts!" With a unified cry of, "Let's go!" the soldiers swarm towards the bloody opening. The monster can only watch in horror as the tiny invaders crawl across its face. Working together, they rip and tear at the flesh, widening the entry point with their mandibles. One soldier dives headfirst into the gory opening, burrowing deep inside its throat. With the path cleared, the commander roars. The skin of the throat is open. Charge! As blood pours from the monster's throat, the ants suppress their fear, gaining the upper hand. Through the open wound, the soldiers rush deeper into the beast's body, their only thought to attack. They swarm through the fleshy tunnels, a relentless tide of tiny invaders. Inside the larynx, they rescue their swallowed comrades and set a new, terrifying goal: find the brain. One soldier suddenly discovers a direct route, shouting, "Aha, here's an artery." The commander confirms their path, ordering them to follow the blood being pushed up from the heart. They ride the crimson current, a living poison flowing straight to the cerebral hemispheres. The order rings out as they approach their target. Get ready to burrow into the brain's gray matter. On the outside, the giant woodpecker can only shudder in agony, completely unaware of the horror within. Meanwhile, another unit reaches the lungs, beginning to pour deadly formic acid into its very core. The woodpecker's beak snaps shut in a final, agonizing spasm, its body racked with pain. Inside, a horrifying pincer movement begins as ants armed with powerful mandibles force their way up the esophagus. Simultaneously, another legion of soldiers races up from below, swarming through the monster's intestines. They ravage every organ they pass, tearing apart the gizzard, liver, and heart from within. But the beast's death throes are deadly, crushing one of the invaders in a sudden, violent gasp. Its body instantly begins to dissolve in the hostile, acidic environment of the creature's innards. A commander issues a chillingly precise order to avoid places where blood or lymph might gush out. "If you're careless," he warns, "the convulsions of the flesh will crush your own body." Another soldier screams about the bile and digestive juices, shouting that touching them means melting instantly. Despite the overwhelming danger, the tiny soldiers cautiously press on through the living labyrinth. Deep inside the dying monster, the two attack units finally converge near its kidneys. The monster's heart still beats, but the fire ants have already won, bringing down the giant invader. "The giant predator that hunted us," a soldier declares, "has now become our food." Ants from the entire city swarm over the huge bird, beginning to carve it up to feed the colony. Soon, the city's tunnels are crowded with ants carrying off the woodpecker's feathers as trophies. In the aftermath, the builder ants have already begun their tireless repair work on the damaged city. Their first task is to raise the great rounded roof once more, protecting the heart of their home. They work tirelessly to restore the damaged tunnels, making their fortress whole again. But this raises a question. How was ant civilization built? To understand, we must go back hundreds of millions of years. Insects were Earth's first inhabitants. But survival in this primordial world was never in their favor. Small and fragile, insects were once nothing more than easy prey for countless predators. To survive, some chose to lay massive numbers of eggs, hoping a few would make it. Others evolved deadly poisons, turning themselves into fearsome creatures no one dared to touch. Some produced foul-tasting substances, making themselves completely unfit to eat, while others chose camouflage, blending perfectly into the grass and trees to escape notice. But the termites, doomed to be devoured, discovered a completely original solution to their survival. From now on, they declared, let's stop fighting alone and band together. Their secret was a complex survival strategy based on a powerful social organization. The man documenting this history declared termites the first true masters of our planet. And all this forbidden knowledge was compiled into one book by a man named Edmund Wells. They say Edmund Wells left no good memories in this city, and when he finally vanished, not a single person tried to stop him. Yet, a former colleague reveals a hidden truth. Edmund was an extremely capable man who once developed a revolutionary food bacterium. In chemistry, he would display flashes of genius that amazed everyone, though these moments were fleeting and inconsistent. Jonathan, digging deeper into his uncle's past, asks, "Were relations between you and him strained?" "Not exactly," the man clarifies, explaining that Edmund simply didn't fit in with his colleagues. The simple, chilling truth was that Edmund was a complete loner, isolated from everyone around him. His discoveries brought the company enormous profit, and yet he was given absolutely no recognition for his work. Sensing there's a darker secret hidden here, Jonathan presses him to explain in more detail. The colleague begins to explain that every team has a leader, but ominously trails off, hinting that with Edmund, things were dangerously different. The colleague reveals Edmund's fatal flaw. He despised authority and looked down on all his managers. He believed they were just mindless drones giving orders, a sentiment he wasn't afraid to voice. Yet while the others were forced to grovel to their superiors, Edmund refused to play the game. They all did it simply because the system demanded their obedience. Edmund's refusal to bend the knee came across as pure arrogance, grating on everyone's nerves. In the end, his own co-workers despised him even more than the bosses he openly defied. Leaning in, Jonathan asks the one question that matters. What happened when he left the company? A heavy silence hangs in the air, the man's hesitation speaking volumes. Finally, he reveals the beginning of the end. He had a dispute with one of our executives. Edmund was completely in the right, the colleague admits, explaining how he laid a trap for a snooping executive. But despite his victory, no one took his side, blindly backing the powerful man instead. Utterly betrayed by his peers, Edmund was left with no choice but to leave the company forever. Jonathan leans forward, confused. "But you just said he was right." The man simply explains that it's better to be a coward than to risk your neck for an outsider. In a flashback, he remembers Edmund as a total loner who never shared a meal with his team. He was a ghost among them, always seeming to be living in a completely different world. Back in the present, a heavy silence hangs in the air, thick with unspoken regret. Jonathan cuts through the quiet, demanding, "Then why are you confessing your cowardice to me?" The colleague sits back, a heavy weight on his conscience, and begins his confession. Now that he's dead, he admits, "I can't help but feel we did him wrong." He hopes that telling Jonathan this story might finally give him a bit of peace. Jonathan listens in stoic silence, processing the heavy truth of his uncle's betrayal. This new information sends him on a new path, leading him through the city toward another clue. His journey takes him far, under an endless blue sky, chasing the ghost of his uncle's past. He finally arrives at the National Center for Scientific Research, a place holding more of Edmund's secrets. Behind door 306, a professor confirms he met Edmund in Africa, a place where everything changed. Edmund carried deep wounds in his heart, the professor reveals. It was because of his wife's death. The professor reveals that after the tragedy, Edmund devoted his entire life to studying insects. Jonathan, confused by this obsession, can only ask, why insects, of all things? With a strange glee, the professor asks why not, claiming insects have fascinated humans for ages. He explains humanity's ancient fears, from flies carrying fevers to spiders that could bite. Despite being so much weaker, he says, we both look down on them and feel threatened by them. But then his tone darkens as he grabs Jonathan, revealing a grim truth. Our bodies ultimately end up in the stomachs of insects. Jonathan is completely stunned by the morbid declaration. They feed on our corpses, the professor continues, a fact Jonathan had never considered. Finally, he connects them to pure evil, revealing that Beelzebub, one of Satan's lieutenants, is depicted with the head of a fly. Jonathan tries to lighten the mood, suggesting ants at least have a better reputation than flies. But the professor cryptically replies, not always, explaining that an ant's reputation depends entirely on the culture. He elaborates, mentioning how some see them as symbols of honesty, while others see them as a mockery of greed. The lecture takes a dark turn, revealing an African belief that an ant bite can curse an unborn child with an insect's head. In stark contrast, he continues, some Polynesian tribes worship them as little gods, leaving Jonathan to ponder the conflicting views. Jonathan finally steers the conversation back to his uncle, asking why Edmund abandoned his research on bacteria. With a strange excitement, the professor dismisses that work as a mere drop in the ocean compared to his true passion. His eyes gleam as he reveals the true obsession was never bacteria, but specifically his research on ants. The revelation hits Jonathan like a ton of bricks, leaving him utterly stunned. In the wake of the earth-shattering tremor, number 327 confirms the two assassins who reeked of stone are gone. He lets out a quiet sigh of relief, believing the immediate danger has finally passed. He assumes his attackers were crushed to death, knowing he only survived thanks to his wings. But the relief is short-lived, as a horrifying realization dawns on him. No, this is just the beginning. Those assassins erased his pheromones, meaning any ant he encounters will now recognize him as an enemy to be destroyed. He trembles, wondering how it all came to this, his thoughts circling back to those two soldiers who smelled like stone. His confusion erupts into pure rage as he screams into the darkness, "Why were you trying to kill me?" He tries to rationalize their actions, desperately concluding they must have been insane to betray their own kind. But then a memory surfaces, and he realizes even the ants who issued the level 3 alert seemed strange. Alone in the suffocating darkness, he's left to ponder a conspiracy far deeper than he ever imagined. He realizes the stone-smelling ants weren't insane at all. They were fully aware, a psychological disorder born from a twisted genetic sequence. It was like the colony's own cells were turning on themselves, destroying the organism from within. He remembers the nurse ants had a chilling name for this horrifying phenomenon: cancer. Suddenly, it all clicks. The stench from his attackers was the smell of disease itself. He knows he must urgently report two critical threats: the dwarf ant's secret weapon, and the terrifying existence of these cancer cells rotting the colony from the inside. But first, he must survive, knowing only one ant can recognize him without his scent. His only hope is his mother, the queen ant herself. Though her forbidden zone is swarming with soldiers, he steels himself, knowing there is no other way. He remembers Queen Velocucuni's words as he presses on. Sometimes, the most dangerous place is the safest of all. With renewed purpose, he races through the dark, echoing tunnels. The passage grows ever deeper, hiding unknown threats within its ancient walls. Suddenly, a massive wooden fortress appears. He's finally arrived at the Forbidden Zone. This ancient pine stump is the Queen's residence, and holds their most precious food supplies. It was here, 5,000 years ago, that their progenitor first battled the termites for this land. After a brutal war lasting 1,000 years, the Velocang ants claimed their hard-won victory. They built their civilization downwards, following the sprawling roots of the Great Pine. But now, this sacred birthplace is guarded by elite sentries, a place where all but the chosen are forbidden to enter. Number 327 approaches the stump with irregular footsteps, his every move calculated to avoid alerting the enemy. He prays not to encounter any soldiers, moving deeper into the darkness step by agonizing step. With only 200 body lengths remaining, his goal is finally within reach. But suddenly, his path is completely sealed by an unknown guardian blocking the entrance. These are the gatekeeper ants, genetically engineered with large, flattened heads to serve as living doors. Their heads fit the openings perfectly, creating an impenetrable seal like a nail driven into wood. He watches from the shadows, realizing the sheer impossibility of passing this living fortress. These living doors prove their worth 780 years ago, during the devastating invasion of the yellow ants. As all Velocang survivors fled into the Forbidden Zone, their last line of defense was activated. The gatekeepers sealed every entrance, sacrificing themselves to ensure the colony's survival. It took the yellow ants an astonishing amount of time to pry open those living bolts, but the gatekeepers didn't just block the way. They used their sheer power to repel the enemy. Eventually, the invaders carved through their chitinous heads, forcing their way in. Yet their sacrifice was not in vain, buying precious time for allied cities to send aid. And now, centuries later, worker ant number 327 stands face to face with one of those legendary guardians. The gatekeeper immediately identifies him as a threat, declaring, "You have no passage pheromone. You're an intruder. No, listen to me." Number 327 pleads, desperately urging the guard to check his antennae. But his words are ignored, as the gatekeeper instantly sends out a piercing alarm signal. The message echoes through the tunnels. An intruder has entered the Forbidden Zone. The living door now stands as an executioner, challenging him. "Where are you, bastard? Just try coming this way." The gatekeeper waits blindly in the dark, but against an enemy with infrared vision, it stood no chance. "I have no choice." Number 327 thinks, launching a swift, decisive attack that the Guardian never saw coming. The incapacitated gatekeeper slowly begins to die, its watch now tragically over. But as rigor mortis sets in, its corpse seals the entrance even more firmly than before. Number 327 stares at the unmoving obstacle, his path to the queen now completely blocked. With a heavy heart, he whispers, "I'm sorry," and unleashes a stream of formic acid. The corrosive spray sizzles against the Guardian's thick head, beginning its gruesome work. But the chitin is too strong, forcing him to spray 4 more times, his apology a pained refrain. At last, the seemingly impenetrable barrier melts away, leaving a steaming, grotesque opening. Peering through the hole, number 327 tries to rationalize the grim necessity of his actions. He rationalizes the gruesome act, telling himself it was nothing more than a broken door. With grim resolve, he steps over the fallen guardian's corpse. I'm merely breaking through a door and moving forward, he thinks, pushing into the darkness. He must warn his kin of the danger, even if it means staking his own life. And so he presses on, ready to break through any obstacle that stands in his way. But this conflict began long ago, 50 million years after termites first formed their societies. Back then, the first ants were weak, born from wasps without stingers or strong mandibles. They survived by imitating the termites, building crude villages that soon grew into cities. But the termites felt threatened, believing social order on Earth belonged to them alone. Their arrogance and fear would inevitably lead to one thing: war. Across the world, termite armies waged an unprecedented war against the newly founded ant cities. Millions of mandibles clashed like swords, a brutal struggle not for food, but for purpose itself. At first, the vastly more experienced termites dominated, achieving one overwhelming victory after another. But the ants were clever, not only mimicking their enemies' weaponry, but inventing entirely new tools of war. This world war raged for nearly 30 million years, a strategic game that heated the very earth. Then, the ants gained a decisive advantage: the ability to weaponize and fire devastating formic acid. Even today, the battles between these two hostile species continue in the shadows of the world. However, the tide has long since turned, and it is now rare for the termite armies to prevail. All this ancient knowledge was compiled into one mysterious text, the Relative and Absolute Encyclopedia of Knowledge, and its author, Edmund Wells, sits alone in the dark, the keeper of these world-altering secrets. At the National Institute of Scientific Research, Jonathan learns his uncle's true obsession was not just insects, but specifically ants. The professor reveals this research went far beyond academic study, involving society in strange ways. You know those toy ant farms? He asks. The man who had them banned, that was Edmund Wells. But his ambitions were grander, attempting to use ants as living insecticides on a massive scale. As insecticides? Jonathan asks, the chilling implications of such a concept slowly dawning on him. The plan was simple yet terrifying. Introduce fire ant colonies into forests to completely eliminate all other pests. And as absurd as it sounded, the professor insists there were historical precedents for this kind of biological warfare. He explains how ants were used to combat caterpillars in Italy and drive out larvae from trees in Poland. Jonathan finally grasps the core of the idea, murmuring, "So making insects fight each other?" The professor pauses, a strange look on his face, before cryptically stating, Edmund described it as insect diplomacy, the professor reveals, explaining how humanity's war on insects with pesticides was a complete failure. For every toxin they created, the insects simply evolved and developed immunity. He describes how spraying a swarm might kill 99%, but the surviving 1% become a nightmare, because their offspring would be born perfectly immune to the poison that wiped out their parents. This forced humanity into an arms race, creating deadlier pesticides that ended up killing as many humans as insects. This unwinnable war is exactly why Edmund proposed his radical, terrifying alternative. Jonathan is left speechless, the weight of the term insect diplomacy sinking in. Are you saying humans have no real way to oppose insects? Jonathan asks, disturbed by the implications. But he quickly counters his own doubt, insisting that humanity still has civilization and science on its side. The professor just smiles, gesturing around the advanced facility and simply says, "Look around you." The professor lists humanity's greatest insect enemies, from mosquitoes to cockroaches, and ominously adds ants to the list. He reminds Jonathan that after the nuclear explosion in 1945, only ants and scorpions were left standing. With a chilling smile, he declares that ants adapted even to the horrors of nuclear devastation. Jonathan is left speechless, the sheer scale of their resilience sinking in. Then why did Uncle Edmund go to Africa? Jonathan asks, confused since ants exist everywhere. The professor calmly explains, of course they do, but not all ants are the same. His expression turns somber as he recalls how Edmund lost all attachment to life after his wife died. He speculates that in his despair, Edmund may have been waiting for the ants to find him. The horrifying implication of his uncle's obsession leaves Jonathan utterly stunned. In fact, they nearly did, the professor reveals, finally naming the terrifying species. I'm talking about driver ants. The professor leans in with a strange smile, asking about an old film called The Naked Prey of the Marabunta. Jonathan nervously shakes his head, and the professor dismisses it as a rare, hard-to-find movie. Marabunta, he explains with a chilling grin, refers to massive swarms of driver ants. When they advance across the plains, he says dramatically, everything in their path is reduced to ruins. It starts with a faint buzzing in the air, the shrill cries of small animals trying to flee the swarm. Then comes the sound of countless wings and legs colliding, a horrifying symphony while the swarm itself is still invisible. Then a few soldier ants suddenly appear atop a mound, he shouts with manic excitement. They are the scouts, and behind them, an endless, unstoppable tide of ants follows. The hills turn black, he says, like molten lava flowing and melting everything it touches. Jonathan can only listen in stunned silence, the terrifying image burning into his mind. They are Africa's poisonous blood, the professor declares, his voice low and intense. Living venom. Their numbers are staggering, an unstoppable stream of black sulfur that lays 500,000 eggs a day. Anything that gets too close is stripped to the bone, because driver ants fear no creature. Jonathan is visibly shaken, the terrifying description chilling him to his core. The professor reveals their most horrifying tactic, floating their comrades' corpses to form bridges across streams. He then begins a personal story from his time with Edmund Wells, when a swarm approached a defenseless village. The residents' only hope was to soak chair legs in vinegar and pray for a miracle. But as the people fled into the desolate landscape, God did not answer their prayers. The weight of the story leaves Jonathan utterly speechless, his mind reeling in horror. Then how, he finally manages to ask, did you study such ferocious ants? Professor Rosenfeld leans in with a chilling smile, finally ready to explain their methods. We waited until noon, he begins, recalling a bright, sun-drenched day. To study the vicious ants that left nothing but bones, they had to find their one weakness. They waited for the sun to reach its peak, when the desert heat was at its absolute worst. In that scorching heat, even the most resilient insects bake and die. So the driver ants dig temporary nests, hiding underground to wait for the temperature to drop. It's like a short hibernation, but forced by heat, leaving them completely vulnerable. In a flashback, a young researcher remembers his reaction. He's crazy. He couldn't believe they were going after those vicious driver ants to find the queen, no less. Their target was the monstrous queen of that horde, a creature that lays 500,000 eggs a day. He's so desperate to see the queen that he's lost his mind, right? One researcher whispers. Meanwhile, Edmund sits apart from the group, a strange and unsettling detail about him going unnoticed. His colleague finally asks the obvious question, Edmund, why aren't you wearing boots? His answer is chillingly simple. The boots are too small. My feet won't fit. Panic flashes across the young man's face as he realizes the sheer danger of this mission. But Edmund cuts him off, declaring they must work now before the ants start moving again. With no time to waste, he orders them to start digging a trench around the nest. Their shovels desperately break the sun-baked earth, racing against a terrifying deadline. Exhausted, the researcher thinks they've finally dug deep enough to be safe, but a sudden shout reveals they've just breached an outer chamber, uncovering a living carpet of death. The young researcher panics. I can hear their mandibles clicking. It's like black liquid flowing, but Edmund remains unfazed, ordering them to keep digging and find the queen's chamber quickly. The team desperately carves into the earth, believing they are just moments away from their goal. Suddenly, the swarm begins to crawl over them, a tide of biting insects testing their resolve. A triumphant shout pierces the chaos as the young man screams, "Found her!" Edmund's eyes lock onto the prize, the legendary driver ant queen, the entire purpose of this insane mission. They stare in awe at the monstrous creature, a being 10 times larger than any queen they've ever seen. In a fit of scientific ecstasy, the researcher frantically yells for a camera to document the impossible discovery, but their photographer cries out in terror. The ants are biting through our boots. Ignoring the danger, the young man grabs a camera and tells him to escape. We'll take photos and follow you. What an incredible queen, he exclaims, capturing the sight of a creature that lays 500,000 eggs daily. He focuses his lens, knowing this is the legendary driver ant queen they've risked everything to find. But below them, the silent army begins its relentless ascent, a tide of biting soldiers. Panic sets in as he cries out, "Hey, Edmund, the driver ants have climbed up to our pants." Yet the camera keeps clicking, documenting the discovery even as the danger mounts. Edmund remains unnerved. "Be careful," he warns, his voice low. "If they get into any opening, they'll burrow right through us." The horrifying warning forces the young man to seal every opening, his face a mask of terror. He remembers their training, using yoga breathing to suppress the panic that would attract the swarm. "Right," Edmund agrees, focusing his own camera. "Stay calm, and let's observe this magnificent queen." The team's calm shatters as Edmund and the photographer stare in wide-eyed shock. "Come out now," Edmund roars, his professional demeanor completely gone as the situation spirals. A young expedition member gasps, his body suddenly covered in a living carpet of driver ants. "Catch the camera!" he screams, tossing the precious equipment away as the swarm overruns him. The team frantically tries to beat the insects off him, a desperate struggle against the horde. But their relief is short-lived as they look up, pointing in renewed terror at an unseen threat. Rosenvelt watches the chaos unfold, his face hardening with grim realization. Suddenly, Edmund breaks away from the group, clawing madly at the earth with his bare hands. "Edmond!" Rosenvelt screams, realizing his colleague has completely lost his mind. They try to pull him back, but he fights them, possessed by an obsession to reach what lies beneath. The team desperately scrapes the clinging driver ants off a traumatized, shirtless Edmund. Rosenvelt narrates how they had to use knives to remove the ant heads and legs embedded in their skin. "We were all terrified," he recalls, but the horror was worst for Edmund, who had no boots. The delayed shock finally hit him, leaving Edmund completely dazed and broken from the ordeal. Back in the present, Jonathan can only mutter, "Bad luck." But Rosenvelt corrects him. No, he was lucky to survive a situation like that. In fact, the terrifying incident only fueled Edmund's obsession, driving him to study the ants even more intensely. "What happened after that?" Jonathan asks, needing to know the rest of the story. Rosenvelt's face falls as he admits that after they returned to Paris, he lost all contact with his friend. He never heard from Edmund again, a complete ghost even to his oldest friends. Rosenvelt sadly admits, "I found out he died from the newspaper." He clasps his hands, praying for his old friend's soul to finally rest in peace. But Jonathan interrupts with a chilling correction. "No, the ones who need peace might actually be those of us still living," leaving the professor to absorb the grim statement. Confused by such a dark premonition, Jonathan can only ask what he means. The professor then points to a greater threat, the unnatural heat turning France tropical. "No," he corrects with chilling certainty. "It's already happening, and we entomologists are aware." He poses a terrifying question. If a moth from Madagascar can reach Paris, what about a swarm of driver ants? The horrifying implication leaves Jonathan speechless, the true stakes finally sinking in, because if that day ever came, all hell would break loose. To number 327, the fallen gatekeeper is nothing more than a broken door. He begins to dissolve its body, preparing to consume it for sustenance. "I'm only eating a few pieces," he thinks, needing to recover his strength for the impossible mission ahead. He is the only ant who can warn his people of the coming danger. But with his passage scent violently scrubbed away, his only hope is a desperate race to find his mother. He knows only the queen will recognize her own offspring, and he must reclaim his kin's scent. Suddenly, his senses flare, detecting a familiar presence in the darkness. A powerful pheromone fills the air as his antennae begin to glow. "I smell mother." He knows with absolute certainty that her chamber is just ahead. The sudden temperature drop is a blessing, allowing him to slip into the forbidden zone completely undetected. Number 327 suddenly freezes, his senses screaming an urgent warning. Two ants are approaching from behind, one large and one small. But a horrifying detail emerges. The small soldier ant is missing its legs. "No way," he thinks, a cold dread washing over him as he recognizes the scent. The two red ants come into view, one dragging the mutilated body of the other. It can't be. It's them, the very traitors who ambushed him before. With no time to think, he bolts deeper into the forbidden tunnels, desperate to escape. Panic sets in as he flees, the path ahead twisting into suffocating darkness. But his pursuers are relentless, their crimson forms closing the distance with terrifying speed. He's being hunted in the one place he thought was safe, his last hope now a deadly trap. The assassins charge forward, their crimson bodies a blur of relentless motion. Desperate. Number 327 pushes onward, his wings a flicker of hope in the endless dark. A sudden glance back reveals a horrifying truth: he's not losing them. He stumbles, his body screaming for rest, but the hunt continues without pause. Up ahead, a new gatekeeper blocks the path, but he realizes with relief it only checks incoming ants. But his pursuers don't slow, their steps echoing like a death sentence behind him. Their eyes are cold, promising a brutal end to this desperate chase. They're closing the distance, he thinks in terror. At this rate, they'll catch me. Suddenly, he collides with another ant, his apology lost in the chaos of the moment. He's sent crashing to the ground, his escape shattered as the traitors finally close in. With no other option, he throws himself into a tiny crack in the wall. Holding his breath, he peeks out from the darkness, hoping he wasn't seen. His pursuer thunders past the opening, seemingly oblivious to his hiding spot. but a glance behind him reveals the horrifying truth. Is this a dead end? Suddenly, a monstrous face appears at the entrance, blocking his only escape. Trapped and terrified, he recoils as the assassin glares in with cold fury. The massive traitor bristles with killing intent, ready to tear the walls apart to get to him. But after a tense moment, the assassin seems to give up and moves on. He lets out a shaky breath, believing he's finally safe from the relentless chase. But a sudden presence from deeper within the tunnel makes his blood run cold as he whispers, "Who's there?" A strange presence fills the air, vibrating through his antennae with an unexpected energy. It's not a threat, but a warm, familiar scent he can't quite place. Meanwhile, back at the house, Jonathan has once again descended into the darkness of the basement. His grandmother arrives, completely unaware, asking, "Back down? Down where?" Lucy explains with dread that he's been locked away in that forbidden place since the night before. The old woman's face drains of color. Horrified he still hasn't returned. "He begged me not to call the police," Lucy admits, revealing this is just one of many trips. His grandmother listens in stunned silence, trying to comprehend her grandson's bizarre behavior. But his uncle warned him. She mutters, recalling the desperate plea to never open that door. Worse still, this time he took tools and concrete, leaving his wife to wonder what on earth he's building down there. Lucy can barely contain her despair as the grandmother stands in stunned silence. "Can't we go down and find him?" she asks, her voice trembling with concern. But Lucy can only choke out a single, hopeless word. "No." Jonathan locked it from the inside, she reveals, her eyes filled with terror. The horrifying truth sends a shockwave through the old woman. "Oh no, this is my fault," she cries, realizing her fatal mistake. The weight of her guilt crushes her as she whispers, "My fault." Upstairs, the two women are trapped in a prison of fear and regret. But deep below, in the suffocating darkness, something else is stirring. A pair of glowing red eyes pierces the black, revealing a creature that should not exist. "Woohoo!" the fugitive ant whispers, his antenna twitching in the suffocating blackness. Suddenly, a blinding light floods the cavern, revealing the source of the disturbance. A colossal red creature looms over him, its presence radiating an aura of pure dread. The scene shifts as a pen glides across paper, explaining how some are born as soldiers with massive cutting mandibles, while others are workers designed for grinding grain. Others develop specialized glands to care for the young, each ant born for a specific, unchangeable purpose. The text then poses a horrifying question. What if this happened to humans, creating soldiers with sword-like fingers? Farmers would be born with pincer-shaped feet, and nurses with 10 pairs of breasts. But among all the specializations, the most remarkable mutation of all produced specialists in love. Worker ants, however, are born without reproductive ability, their instincts reduced to appetite and the urge to work an incomprehensible existence. In their world, reproduction is a specialized role for males and females, keeping workers free from distraction. They are born solely for love, gifted with special structures for that purpose, like their wings. Their antennae exchange abstract emotions, while simple eyes grant them the power of infrared vision. And in the quiet darkness, a lone man pores over this very knowledge, obsessed with its implications. Suddenly, deep within the tunnels, number 327 detects a foreign scent cutting through the blackness. "Who's there?" he cautiously calls out, his senses on high alert. A colossal, unfamiliar face emerges from the shadows, its strange eyes locking onto him. The creature's full, winged form is revealed, radiating an aura of immense power he's never felt. It's huge, the size of 90 grains of sand, an ant unlike any he has ever seen or smelled. And in a moment of dawning horror, he realizes he's staring at a female ant. He's captivated by her slender legs and the sweet hormonal scent she carries, while her thick antennae emit an intense scent, and her red compound eyes are as beautiful as berries. He marvels at her magnificent, shining abdomen, a perfect specimen of his kind. But it's her splendid wings, twice the size of his own, that truly leave him breathless. In a moment of pure awe, he realizes this is his first time seeing a true female ant. The giantess looks down, her voice echoing in his mind. "What sweet words are you trying to say to me?" But his admiration is met with sudden, overwhelming violence as she slams him into the ground. A choked gasp escapes him as her immense power crushes the air from his body. Pinned and helpless, he realizes his fatal mistake. A female never releases an intruder. With his last ounce of strength, he desperately pleads, "Wait, just wait. I'm not an enemy," he desperately explains. "Please listen to me." But she scoffs at his plea. "You have no kin scent. What kind of fool do you take me for?" He tries to reason with her overwhelming power, urging her to calm down and listen. Her response is a cold, absolute law of their kind. Intruders must die. In a last-ditch effort, he offers a way to prove his intent. touch your antennae to mine. She recoils in disgust, shouting that touching an intruder is an impure act. He insists it's the only way, forcing his antennae closer for complete communication. In that brief contact, he deciphers her identity, exclaiming, "Female Ant 56. Enraged by the violation, she screams for him to get his disgusting antenna away. Yet even now, pinned and facing death, he simply begs for just one more moment. The massive female ant glares down at him, stating the obvious, "You're smaller than me." A wave of realization hits her as she finally identifies him. A male ant? He explains that male ants are incomplete beings, possessing only half the chromosomes of their species. This is because they hatch from the queen's unfertilized eggs. She silently questions why some eggs are left unfertilized at all. He reveals it's a matter of temperature, as the cold halts the queen's fertilization process. Male ants are a product of the cold, just as death is. He concludes they are nothing more than freely moving reproductive cells, giant sperm. The shocking truth sinks in, causing her to flinch away in disgust. So right now, she thinks in horror, a single sperm is on my back, choking me? She flushes, realizing this is the maiden's chamber, a forbidden zone reserved only for sex cells. Any outside cell would be a contamination, and to her, he is utterly impure. "I'm not trying to contaminate you," he insists. "I just want to share the truth." But she refuses direct contact, having been taught never to touch antennae under any circumstances. He desperately explains his scent has been wiped clean, forcing him to plead for complete communication. His mind flashes back to a lesson from his mother about the dangers of miscommunication through scent alone. The queen explained how falsehoods arise when stray scents or air currents corrupt a message. The only way to prevent such incidents is through complete communication, a direct touch of antennae. With no barriers, the neurotransmitters of two minds can flow into one another freely. Yet, back in the present, the very idea of such a connection feels fundamentally wrong to her. "Why?" she demands, unable to comprehend why she would ever need to perform such a forbidden act. To her, the idea is a violation, like losing the purity of my soul. He understands her fear, but his expression is grim as he prepares to explain the harsh reality. "One day, you may need to do such complete communication," he warns, a chilling premonition in his voice. Still terrified, she can only ask why that day would ever have to come. Instead of answering with words, he slowly extends his antenna, offering a direct connection. A strange energy crackles in the air as their feelers draw impossibly close. The moment they touch, a blinding flash erupts, sealing their neural link. Slowly, a vibrant, ethereal energy begins to flow between their two minds. Pheromones and raw thought transmit directly as their consciousnesses begin to merge. Their thoughts intertwine as the vibrations between them grow faster and stronger. Through this intense connection, every memory the male ant has ever experienced is transmitted directly into her mind. Male ant. Number 327 shares his entire life with female ant. Number 56 inches a language more perfect than words. Overwhelmed by the raw influx of his memories, she can only gasp in shock and confusion. He remains still as she reels from the weight of his past, the betrayal, the escape, and his desperate fight for survival. Having shared everything, number 327 now places himself completely at the mercy of the female ant. With her overwhelming power, she could crush him in an instant if she chose to. A surge of anger and disbelief flashes across her face as she processes the horrifying truth of his story. But then, she flinches, a sudden realization dawning on her as the full picture becomes terrifyingly clear. Her mandibles snap open, not in aggression, but in a moment of shocking revelation and a critical decision. Overwhelmed with relief, number 327 cries out, "You believed me." "Of course," she replies, offering to share nutrients now that she knows the horrifying truth. At last, the male ant had found an ally, successfully transmitting his desperate warning to another cell. Their bond solidifies in a brilliant flash of light as she fully accepts his reality. A powerful energy swirls around them, sealing their newfound pact against the coming darkness. But with time running out, the critical question hangs in the air. How can we report the incident? The female ant gravely explains that warning the entire colony is an impossible task for just the two of them. Besides, she warns, a major event is about to begin, making their situation even more precarious. He suddenly understands what she means, realizing it's the newborn festival. "Exactly," she confirms, knowing the scattered workers will be completely vulnerable during the preparations. She gravely states that to spread the truth, they will need allies. But he points out another critical problem. They need a hideout from the assassins hunting them. She immediately offers a solution, telling him to use her personal space as their sanctuary. He's stunned to realize she's offering her own room, a place of ultimate trust and vulnerability. "It's fine," she says calmly, reminding him of their new bond. "We're one now, aren't we?" The weight of her words hits him, and he blushes furiously, exclaiming, "We're one." The intimacy of their shared fate makes them both flustered, their connection deepening beyond a simple alliance. Then, she shifts the dynamic entirely, demanding he stop using formal honorifics with her. She begins to walk away, establishing a new, more equal footing between them. Her sudden command leaves him completely speechless, his world shifting once again. Peeking from their hideout, the two fugitives realize with horror, "We've been found out." But number 327 quickly forms a plan, declaring they now need a third conspirator to succeed. His new partner confidently agrees, "Leave it to me," ready to persuade the very first ant they find. Suddenly, deep within the tunnels, a strange butterfly appears, fluttering where it shouldn't be. A lone soldier ant cautiously approaches the out-of-place creature, sensing something is deeply wrong. The moment its antenna makes contact, the soldier recoils in utter shock, realizing the deception. The butterfly illusion shatters, revealing number 327 who has just transferred all his memories in a flash of light. The soldier is blown back by the revelation, screaming, "You're saying a massive danger has come upon our Velokang." Overwhelmed by the truth of the conspiracy, the soldier demands to know everything: where, who, how, and why. The powerful female ant steps forward to calm the panicked recruit, promising, "I'll tell you everything." The powerful female ant explains the entire conspiracy, her overwhelming presence captivating the lone soldier. Stunned into a long silence, the soldier processes the horrifying truth he was just shown. Number 327 watches intently, realizing he's already been drawn into the story. The soldier looks up in awe, seeing in her the quiet, dignified presence of a true queen. "When do we depart?" he asks, his loyalty now absolute as he declares himself soldier number 103,683. He roars with newfound purpose, vowing to split the dwarf ants clean in two with his flame-like power. "I'll crush them under my legs, tear them apart," he screams, ready to hunt down every last traitor. Number 327 praises his fiery justice but warns him that this mission must be handled quietly and covertly. He finishes his command with a single, critical instruction, but swiftly. Now standing together as a unit, she introduces their new ally, declaring, "We are the first three who will protect Velokang." The soldier ant strikes a pose, proudly declaring them the Three Musketeers. Together, the unlikely trio forms a pact, a new revolutionary cell ready to fight from the shadows. Their antennae cross in a silent oath, sealing their new and dangerous alliance. They are now the Three Musketeers of Velokang, a secret force sworn to protect their home. But number 327 immediately lays out the grim reality. Spies and mercenaries have already infiltrated their kin. He reveals a unique advantage, the ability to identify every traitor by their distinctive rock scent. With chilling confidence, he looks at his new comrades and simply tells them, "Trust me." Overwhelmed with purpose, blazing soldier ant number 103,683 raises his antenna, ready for the hunt. He stands tall, a beacon of fiery loyalty in a colony now riddled with betrayal. Meanwhile, in the human world, the quiet streets are completely unaware of the war brewing just beneath their feet. In the heavy silence of the living room, young Nicholas sits alone, lost in thought. Suddenly, he jolts upright, sensing his father's return. He leaps off the couch with a hopeful cry, "Dad!" But Jonathan walks past without a glance, coldly stating, "Nicholas, Dad's dirty right now." The boy chases after him, his voice filled with innocent concern. "What were you doing in the basement?" Nicholas is left standing alone, the silence amplifying his growing unease. He grabs his father's arm, his question now more urgent. "Dad, what's in the basement?" Jonathan simply brushes him off, his voice distant and cold. "Dad's busy. I'll play with you later." Then, he turns with a chilling finality, issuing a stern command. "You must never go down to the basement. Understand?" Left alone once more, Nicholas sinks back into the couch, the man he called Dad, now a complete stranger. The family home sits under a dark, foreboding sky. Inside, an unsettling silence hangs heavy in the empty living room. Jonathan suddenly appears, his dirty state a stark contrast, coldly asking, "Are you just going to watch TV all day?" "Leave him alone," Lucy pleads, reminding him of their son's grief over their dead dog. In a moment of clarity, Jonathan tries to connect with his son, posing a difficult matchstick riddle. But Nicholas just sighs in defeat. "No, I'm too frustrated to do it." A flicker of the old father returns as Jonathan smiles, repeating the boy's words with a strange understanding. He pats his son's head, promising a valuable lesson if he solves the puzzle. But the piece is shattered as he walks away. And Lucy asks with dread, "Where are you going?" His eyes are cold and distant as he answers, "To the basement. I have to pack supplies." Lucy's patience finally snaps, as she demands to know what secret in the basement has so completely bewitched him. "You've become a completely different person," she screams, her face contorted with rage over his transformation. She accuses him of wasting money on ant books and neglecting their family, all while their son Nicholas watches in silence. But Jonathan just looks weary, overwhelmed by an obsession he can't explain or control. "Trust me," he pleads with a chilling intensity, insisting he's not crazy and must see this through to the end. Lucy gestures desperately, pointing out his ghastly appearance. "Look at yourself. You're pale as a sheet, like someone with a fever." His sunken eyes and gaunt face only prove her point, showing a man wasting away for some unknown cause. From above, she looks down on the man he's become, her voice filled with genuine fear as she asks, "Are you really okay?" A horrifying smile spreads across his face as he delivers a cryptic answer. "My body is aging, but my mind is getting younger." His words hang in the air, leaving his wife and son utterly terrified of the man standing before them. Lucy desperately begs Jonathan to tell her what's happening down there, but he only offers a chilling riddle, claiming that to come back up, he must keep going down. His face twists into a manic grin as he screams, "To get the strength to come back up, you have to touch the bottom." He then turns his back on his family, marching triumphantly towards the forbidden door. They can only watch in horror as he descends into the oppressive darkness below. Suddenly, the narrative shifts, explaining the fundamental difference between human and ant perception of time. A hidden journal reveals the secret. For ants, time is elastic, stretching and shrinking based on their surroundings. This is the lost research of Edmund Wells, who discovered insects add a third factor to reality: temperature. Meanwhile, in the ant world, number 327 begins his rebellion, declaring, "I'll persuade the nurse ants." His new recruit eagerly accepts his role, vowing, "I'll bring other soldier ants." Number 327 declares that fiery soldier 103,683 will be a tremendous force. And the soldier roars, "Leave it to me." The massive female ant details her own plan to scout the farms, setting a rendezvous for when the temperature hits 23 degrees. With their missions set, the newly formed Three Musketeers split up to begin their insurrection. Number 327 races alone through the dark, winding tunnels of the colony on his own vital task. Suddenly, a blinding light bursts forth at the end of the passage, illuminating his path forward. He emerges into a breathtaking chamber, where brilliant sunlight pours through the ceiling. This is the sunlit chamber, the very factory of life that produces every citizen of the Belokan colony. He watches as nurse ants meticulously tend to the future of their species, where 24 eggs form a single pile. Endless rows of eggs stretch into the distance as he solemnly reflects, "I was born here too." He observes the intricate system of temperature control, where worker ants use black wood and fermented humus to nurture the next generation. He watches the delicate balance of heat and moisture that forges the colony's future generations. Heavily armed gunner ants patrol the perimeter, completely unaware of the true threat lurking within. The nurse ants diligently move the precious larvae, future weapons for the Belokan people, to the cocoon chamber. As his own kin are born, tearing free from their cocoons, number 327 feels a grim connection to them. But a dark realization dawns on him. Something serious is happening in this city. A nurse ant senses his disturbance, sharply commanding, "Quiet. Nothing is more important than the birth of a life." She turns on him, trying to drive the intruder away from the sacred nursery. "Don't interfere, go away." But his response is swift and brutal, a flash of violence shattering the chamber's peace. The stunned nurse recoils, crying out, "Who launched that formic acid attack?" With his opposition neutralized, number 327 stands over his prize, having struck the first blow of his revolution. With a furious roar of "Die!" number 327 hurls the stolen cocoon like a weapon. The massive nurse ant is stunned, as the projectile slams directly into her face. But he doesn't stop, launching another one with terrifying speed and precision. It shatters against the ground, the life within it instantly extinguished. The other nurses recoil in horror, one crying out, "A nurse ant is throwing and smashing eggs?" Ignoring their shock, number 327 scurries along the chamber wall, his mission far from over. He then takes to the air, his wings beating furiously as he soars through the nursery. Landing amidst the precious cocoons, he prepares for his next shocking move. He brings his leg down, crushing yet another future soldier, without a moment's hesitation. Meanwhile, his massive winged ally joins the chaos, smashing eggs as the guards scream, "We have to protect the eggs." Realizing the fleeing nurse is too fast, number 327 decides he'll have to catch her with formic acid. He fires a single, precise shot that strikes his target from across the chamber. "Got her," he thinks, as the acid instantly incapacitates the panicked ant. The other nurses stare in horror, unable to comprehend how one of their own could destroy the colony's future. But amidst the chaos, number 327 suddenly detects a faint, unfamiliar stench in the air. His senses flare as he recognizes the scent with alarm. The rock smell. The narrative then explains that baby ants are born too weak to even break free from their own cocoons. This mirrors human infants, who are also born completely helpless and unable to survive alone. Both species are defined by their reliance on others, a fundamental law of their societies. Yet this very dependence, this apparent weakness, is what drives another, more powerful kind of evolution. This relentless pursuit of knowledge begins at birth, an instinct driving the helpless. The young naturally seek wisdom from their elders, a fundamental requirement for survival. This transfer of information, this sociability, is the very foundation of a species' strength. Meanwhile, deep underground on level 20, female Ant 56 is stunned by the sheer scale of her own city. Having lived a sheltered life in the princess chambers, she realizes she never knew the true world she inhabited. Her eyes fixate on a magnificent white structure, a sight completely alien to her. This is a mushroom, number 327 calmly explains, a simple word for a world-changing discovery. He reveals their civilization first learned of mushroom cultivation during the Grain War in the 50,000th millennium. It was a gunner ant special forces team that stumbled upon a termite city, discovering their enemy's secret food source. From captured termites, they learned the secret, building their own farms and forever changing their society. This is a mushroom farm, number 327 explains, where they cultivate their own unique food source. Unlike the termites, the Belican colony grows oyster mushrooms, which gardener ants carefully disinfect with their saliva. But their tour is cut short when a gardener confronts them, asking what brings a princess to this restricted area. Our city is facing serious danger, she pleads, desperately trying to recruit him to their cause. Number 327 reveals the true stakes. The dwarf ants have created a secret weapon with terrifying capabilities. The gardener panics, horrified that this perfect farm could be destroyed in the conflict. I can't lose these mushrooms, he says, suddenly offering a piece for her to taste. He insists she eat it and give her assessment, a seemingly innocent gesture of trust. But the moment she consumes it, a horrifying, bloody vision flashes through her mind. This is poison, she chokes, her body convulsing as the shocking betrayal becomes terrifyingly clear. The gardener viciously attacks, pinning the princess down with surprising strength. But before he can finish the job, number 327 slams into him, sending the traitor flying. He relentlessly pummels the gardener, demanding to know who sent him on this assassination mission. Suddenly, other gardeners surround them, shouting, "What are you two doing? You can't fight here." They demand an explanation, completely baffled as to why fellow citizens would be fighting. Seeing his chance, the poisoned gardener scrambles to his feet and makes a desperate escape. "Let go, he's getting away," the princess screams. But the others hold them back, adding to the chaos. Ignoring the crowd, number 327 takes to the air, determined to catch the fleeing assassin. He lands directly in the traitor's path, blocking his escape and demanding answers. Then, a strange scent hits him. Rock, smell. Realizing this is no ordinary ant, the traitorous gardener remains stubbornly silent, refusing to give up his secrets. Fine. Number 327 growls, prying the assassin's jaws apart to force an answer. With a sickening crack, the gardener's mandibles are broken open. But still, he reveals nothing. He's not just silent, he's put himself into a rigid state, completely locking down his body. I'll force it out through his antennae. Number 327 declares, deciding to read his mind directly. He presses his feelers against the traitors, attempting to extract the information by force. But it's no use. He can't read anything, as if the gardener's mind is a complete blank. Suddenly, other gardeners swarm them, demanding, "What did you do to your comrade?" Trapped and surrounded, number 327 realizes that whatever he says won't get through to them. With no other choice, he takes to the air, knowing he needs to get away for now. Realizing something big is definitely happening, number 327 takes to the air in a desperate escape. He fears there must be more traitors, more mad cells, hidden deep inside the Belican colony. He lands hard in an unfamiliar section of the nest, the conspiracy growing larger by the second. Racing through the dark tunnels, he pushes onward, desperate for answers. His only thought is for his allies, hoping his friends are still safe from the spreading corruption. His frantic search leads him to a new depth, the ominous level 45, underground. Suddenly, he's stopped dead by the violent sounds of a struggle just ahead. His antennae twitch wildly, sensing the pheromones of a brutal, internal conflict. He peeks around a corner to a horrifying sight, soldiers locked in a deathmatch against their own kind. One ant falls, mercilessly executed by its comrade as another watches the betrayal unfold. He watches as the two factions of soldiers face off, a civil war brewing in the dark tunnels. A cold truth echoes in the darkness. Victory is decided before the clash even begins. Formic acid explodes, marking the start of a brutal, predetermined slaughter. There are those who came to win, and those who simply came to accept their defeat. This battle is nothing more than the sorting of those two fated roles. The warrior who has already claimed victory in his mind strikes true without even aiming, but the one who expects to lose can't land a single scratch, no matter how hard he struggles. As one soldier proves, it all comes down to the conviction in your heart. "You're in the way," he snarls, smashing his brother-in-arms to the ground with contempt. The defeated ant can only choke out, "Whoa, who's this strong?" as his fate is sealed. "Hey there," the soldier announces, entering the mercenary unit's barracks, a den teeming with warriors from every tribe. Yellow ants, red ants, black ants, and even the bizarre sticky-tongued ants are all gathered here for war. Primitive stinging ants and the feared dwarf ants round out their terrifying ranks. These are the mercenary ants, killers for hire with no allegiance but to coin. But this twisted idea of hiring other tribes to fight your wars originally came from the termites. Long ago, termites turned ant units into mercenaries to fight other ant tribes. These ant armies were stationed permanently inside termite cities, a foreign legion guarding their masters. For their new employers, these soldiers were forced to fight against their own kind, their own sisters. But as ant civilization grew stronger, the tables turned, and they began using termites as their own mercenaries. Because in the end, only ants could tolerate the monstrous sin of fighting against their own. In the dark tunnels, a fire ant begins to unravel the brutal politics of his world. He explains that ants have as many different political systems as they do physical traits, a diversity that breeds endless conflict. This brutal reality has given rise to countless factions, each with their own goals. And among the most feared are the merciless mercenaries known as the dwarf ants. One of them speaks of a terrifying secret weapon, capable of slaughtering 28 fire ant scouts in a single instant. The fire ant scoffs, "I've never seen or heard of such a powerful weapon." But a yellow ant steps forward, his voice grim. "I have seen a weapon that overwhelming." He recounts a horrifying memory, not of an ant attack, but of a single rotten pear falling from a tree. A chilling silence falls over the crowd as they process the impossible story. And then, the memory of the chaos erupts, a force that sent bodies flying in every direction. The soldier confirms the horrifying truth. 28 of their expedition were wiped out in a single, silent moment. He reveals there is one survivor, and with him, they are desperately trying to identify this terrifying secret weapon. Inspired by this mission, a black ant declares, "I'll join you," and a yellow ant immediately agrees, "Me too." The yellow ant rallies the growing crowd, insisting they must uncover the weapon for the sake of their fallen comrades. The soldier silently wishes that the survivor, number 327, could witness this newfound unity. Now leading this new faction, he calls for their attention, preparing to deliver a crucial warning. He reveals a deadly threat, a group that hunts truth, seekers, mercenaries working for the Shigefu dwarf ants. He gives them the only clue to identify these assassins. They all give off a rock smell. The others react with confusion, questioning the meaning of this strange rock smell. For security, he decides their first meeting will be in the lowest room, a place no one ever dares to go. The soldier swears his new recruits to secrecy, telling them only they are allowed to know this truth. With his mission complete, he declares he has something else to take care of and dashes away. He pushes his body to its limit, his temperature rising as he races through the tunnels. He must report this success to the leaders of the rebellion, male ant 327 and female ant 56. Meanwhile, in the human world, a documentary about the Mars rover concludes there are no signs of life. Lying on the couch, Nicholas watches the barren landscapes of a distant world flash across the screen. He can't help but wonder if his father's insane ramblings about space were actually right. Are we the only intelligent life in the universe? He asks himself, a deep loneliness setting in. The channel changes to a show about the caste system, a world where everyone is locked into their role until death. His mother Lucy enters, telling him to turn off the TV and go to bed, oblivious to his existential crisis. "What about Dad?" Nicholas asks, his voice small and worried. His mother Lucy falls silent, a shadow of grief crossing her face. "He's still in the basement," she finally admits, the words hanging heavy in the air. She promises he'll be back by morning, but the boy's hopeful, "Really?" is filled with doubt. Her hollow reassurance echoes as the night deepens around their isolated home. But inside, a single light burns, a beacon of the family's waking nightmare. Tucked into bed, Nicholas stares into the darkness, whispering, "Mom, I can't sleep." His mother appears in the doorway, her face etched with concern for her troubled son. She crosses the room, her shadow falling over the bed where he lies restless. "Come here, sweetheart," she says softly, offering a story to chase away the horrors he can't yet understand. "Make it a beautiful one," Nicholas pleads, and his mother softly agrees to his request. Once upon a time, she begins, her voice a gentle whisper in the quiet room. Her story is of a lone stonecutter, forced to chip away at a vast mountain. His only job was to hack at the rock, sweating endlessly under the blazing sun. But the grueling work had finally broken his spirit. "I can't take this anymore," he cried. He cursed the sun that always burned down, making his life completely miserable. If only I were the sun, he wished, dreaming of shining his light over the entire world. He believed then there would be nothing to envy and nothing he couldn't do. Suddenly, a miracle happened, and his desperate wish was unexpectedly granted. The stonecutter became the sun, overjoyed as his impossible dream became a brilliant reality. With a happy heart, he sent his rays into every corner of the world. But his joy was short-lived when a single cloud appeared and blocked his light. "If clouds are stronger than the sun," he raged, "I want to be a cloud." In a flash, his wish was granted once more. "Yahoo! I'm a cloud!" he cried, unleashing rain and storms across the land. But then a sudden wind rose from nowhere and scattered his form completely. Powerless again, he realized the truth, screaming, "The wind is the strongest of all. I want to be the wind." He became the master of storms and gales, a mighty typhoon of raw power. Yet even his incredible force was stopped dead by a mountain that refused to yield. "The mountain is the strongest thing of all," he roared. "I'll become a mountain." The man became a mountain, proud and firm, finally satisfied that he was the strongest of all. But then he felt something even mightier carving into his stone flesh, a power he couldn't resist. It was a small stonecutter, relentlessly chipping away at the unmovable peak. The story ends as Nicholas gasps, jolted from the tale back into his dark room. "Did you like the story?" his mother asks gently, tucking him in. But the boy's mind is already connecting the dots, asking, is Dad also digging into something? He wonders aloud if his father is trying to become a sun underground, just like the man in the story. "Dad thinks of himself as the king of ants," Nicholas reveals, his voice filled with a chilling certainty. Lucy tries to calm him, asking if he remembers playing with ant colonies himself. "That's right," the boy confirms, recalling his innocent games, a world away from his father's terrifying obsession. Lucy gently kisses her son, whispering, "See, now you need to sleep." As she leaves the room, Nicholas wishes her good night, but his mind is already racing. The door clicks shut, leaving the boy alone in the unsettling darkness. But sleep won't come. He quietly slips out of bed, drawn to his nightstand. He reaches for a box of matches, his father's cryptic words echoing in his head. Sitting on his bed, he obsesses over an impossible riddle. How on earth do you make 4 triangles with 6 matchsticks? His attempts fail, the flat shapes mocking his two-dimensional thinking. But the answer lies in a different world entirely. A world where 3 ants form a triangle with their antenna, initiating a terrifyingly efficient, complete communication. Deep underground, the rebel ants connect, their minds linking in a flash of shared consciousness. This link lets them share everything they've experienced in an instant, becoming one mind split into 3 bodies. As their antennae touch, their minds begin to merge into one powerful consciousness. Their combined intellect becomes something far greater than the sum of its parts. But suddenly, the perfect connection is violently interrupted. "There's a foul smell," one of them cries out, sensing an intruder nearby. Cautiously, they peer into the darkness, searching for the source of the disturbance. "Who's there?" the soldier demands, his senses on high alert. A shadowy figure darts away, trying to escape into the deeper caverns. They recognize the target instantly. It's the limping assassin they've been hunting. Without hesitation, the rebels give chase, determined to end the threat for good. But it was all a trap, as the assassin turns to face them before an army of glowing red eyes. The assassin's hidden army emerges from the darkness, their mandibles clacking ominously. "Did you think I came alone?" The traitor sneers, revealing his overwhelming numbers, but number 327 spots an escape route, yelling, "Escape through the secret passage." His panicked allies scramble desperately toward the opening. The enemy commander gives the order as his forces surge forward to catch them. Number 327 flies ahead, leading his friends through the narrow tunnel to safety. Realizing they won't all make it, he turns to face the horde, declaring, "I'll buy you some time." He unleashes a devastating beam attack, tearing through the front lines of the traitorous army. Enraged by the resistance, the assassin bellows a single command. "Kill them! Kill those traitors!" he screams, as his soldiers press the attack with renewed fury. Meanwhile, under the quiet moonlight, a single light burns in the old house, hinting at a secret yet to be uncovered. Inside, Jonathan's wife Lucy desperately searches for answers, hoping a book might explain his madness. She finds an old tome, its title promising a look into the history of old French houses. I didn't expect there to be a book recording this house's history, she thinks, finding a chapter on their home. The pages reveal a dark past, a secret basement, far deeper than normal, built as an escape route during religious wars. A chilling realization dawns on her as she connects the dots to her husband's forbidden basement. With a sharp thud, she slams the book shut, the truth becoming too heavy to bear. Deeply unsettled, she rises and paces the room, her mind racing with horrifying implications. Her anxiety finally pushes her to check on her family, her heart pounding with every step. She quietly opens the bedroom door, peering into the darkness at the still figure sleeping within. Nicholas sleeps restlessly, tossing and turning in the oppressive darkness of his room. His mother, Lucy, watches over him with a look of deep concern, her heart heavy with worry. Her eyes then fall upon a strange arrangement of matchsticks left on his nightstand. So Nicholas has been trying to solve the problem his dad gave him, she realizes with a sinking feeling. She wonders if this childish riddle could be the key to unlocking the terrifying mystery of the basement. 4 equilateral triangles with 6 matchsticks, she murmurs, the puzzle seeming impossible to solve. Her husband's chilling words echo in her mind. If you think the way people normally do, you'll never find the answer. A different way of thinking. She jolts upright as a sudden, terrifying thought begins to form. But the mental strain is too much, and she collapses onto the sofa as the darkness of the house closes in. Her mind drifts back to a simpler time, to the man her husband was before this house claimed him. In her dream, Lucy sees her husband's deceased Uncle Edmund beckoning to a crowd. He turns to her as she questions the long, silent line of people forming behind him. Her gaze follows his, and a horrifying sight comes into view. A row of gallows against the sunset. Isn't that a gallows? She gasps, her eyes wide with terror as the realization dawns. The nightmare shifts, and suddenly she sees her husband Jonathan standing silently in the same line. Before she can react, a coarse rope is violently thrown around her own neck. What's happening? She chokes, yanked off her feet as the noose tightens mercilessly. She finds herself trapped in the line of the condemned, standing beside her family and awaiting their turn. All hope drains from her face as she stares forward, trapped in this inescapable fate. Beside her, Uncle Edmund simply turns and asks with a chilling calmness, "What do we do now?" With a noose tight around his neck, Jonathan whispers in despair, "I don't know, we have to live." He knows they should fight to survive, but a crushing sense of finality weighs on him. It feels like it's all going to end. He chokes out, his eyes wide with terror, but his Uncle Edmund calmly reassures him, "My dear nephew, don't be so pessimistic. This is just a rough patch." He firmly believes there is surely a way out of this impossible situation. Suddenly, he spots a man with a loose noose and commands, "You there, free us." The man realizes he can slip out, and a desperate plan is set in motion. He's instructed to swing his body like a pendulum to reach the next person in line. The plan works, and as the first set of hands comes free, a wave of hope spreads. "Do exactly as I do," the man yells, moving down the beam to free everyone. Lucy panics, shouting that there's nothing at the end of the beam and the soldiers will notice them. But Uncle Edmund calmly points towards their only hope, a tiny, almost invisible hole in the wood. With no other choice, he declares, "Let's go for it." As they stare down their impossible escape route, Lucy is horrified by the insane plan, screaming that it's just a simple knot in the wood. Ignoring her fears, Edmund takes the lead, sprinting along the beam with a wild cry of "Let's go." The others follow in a desperate scramble for freedom, running for their lives high above the ground. Their escape is instantly noticed, as a guard below screams out a warning, "Los Gringos!" Suddenly, an entire squad of armed soldiers swarms towards them, ready to open fire. Reaching the hole, Lucy turns back, yelling for her husband, "Jonathan, come with me!" Without a second to spare, she leaps into the darkness, trusting this insane gamble with her life. Gunshots echo as the family scrambles up a dark, winding staircase in a desperate flight for their lives. "Hurry!" Lucy cries out in terror. "They're chasing us and firing their guns." They burst through a door, finding themselves in a shockingly opulent and empty grand hall. The group sprints through the streets, their frantic footsteps, the only sound in the deserted city. Edmund takes charge, shouting, "Everyone this way," as he leads them towards a hidden door. He shoves a terrified Lucy inside, the promise of safety just moments away from their grasp. The heavy door slams shut behind them, cutting off the sounds of their pursuers. With a final click, the lock turns, sealing them inside their strange new sanctuary. They collapse in exhaustion, finally safe, but surrounded by an unnerving, luxurious silence. But Lucy breaks down, her voice filled with anguish. "What is this?" "You have to think about Nicholas." Lucy's desperation finally explodes as she screams, "How can you be this helpless? She grabs Jonathan by the collar, her voice cracking as she begs him to think of their son. For the sake of our one and only son, Nicholas, she pleads, "You need to snap out of it." But her resolve wavers, and she places the mysterious, ancient-looking vase down with trembling hands. In a final, desperate act, she hurls the water from the vase directly at her catatonic husband. The water crashes over Jonathan, drenching him completely in a shocking splash. He immediately begins to thrash and convulse as if being electrocuted, his body flailing wildly. The scene shatters into a bizarre vision where Jonathan is nothing but a peeled shrimp, helpless and pathetic. Suddenly, the ghost of his uncle Edmund appears, coldly asking, "Sister-in-law, you're having second thoughts, aren't you?" Lucy turns away, unable to meet his gaze, her denial weak and unconvincing. "I don't know what you mean." "You will," Edmund's ghost insists with cold certainty. He turns from the shattered vase and her catatonic husband, commanding, "Follow me." The world warps into a fiery hellscape as he stretches his arms, ready to unveil a terrible truth. "People always think in the same old way," he scoffs. As 7 matchsticks ignite before him, Lucy suddenly finds herself on a precipice, staring down into a burning, infinite abyss below. He explains they perceive the world in a tired, predictable way, trapped by their own senses. Using a photography analogy, he compares their limited view to always using a single, wide-angle lens. "That is one side of reality," he says, her eyes widening in terror. "But it's not the whole picture." He gestures to the burning vision, insisting she must learn to think differently. The matchsticks flare with impossible intensity, a symbol of a dangerous, world-altering new perspective. Inside the vision, Edmund commands her with burning intensity. "Look, at that shape," he says, forcing Lucy to confront the impossible form of the blazing matchsticks. Her eyes widen in horror as the fiery reflection reveals a terrifying new truth about reality itself. Suddenly, the vision shatters, and a grim silence falls over the house in the real world. A heavy bolt slides into place, sealing a forbidden door and a dark chapter of their lives. With a final, decisive click, a padlock secures the basement, locking away the source of the madness. After a plumber finishes his work, Lucy dismisses him, her mind already focused on her next move. Her son Nicholas, sensing the change, asks nervously, "Mom, what are you planning to do?" With cold resolve, she stares into the darkness and declares, "I'm going to find your dad." She knows the truth is far stranger than insanity, whispering, "Dad thinks he's a cloud that can drift over mountains." Lucy turns to leave, promising her son she needs to find out the truth about his father. But Nicholas screams in terror, "Mom, don't go, I'll be left all alone." With cold resolve, she looks back, her promise echoing in the tense silence, "I'll come back up." The door closes on his horrified face as she gives one last instruction to wait for her. A heavy bolt slides into place, sealing him inside and her on a path of no return. Alone in the dark, her face is a mask of fear and grim determination for what lies ahead. Flashlight in hand, she steps onto the stairs leading down into the suffocating abyss. The spiraling staircase descends endlessly, a lone light swallowed by an ocean of black. But deep below, something stirs as a massive insect leg slams into the earth with purpose. An army of red ants marches forward, their presence a terrifying omen of what she's about to uncover. A swarm of shadowy insects with glowing red eyes closes in on their targets. "Catch them! Get them!" Their commanders roar, ordering the relentless pursuit. But number 327 knows these tunnels, shouting a command to turn at the next corner. He skids to a sudden halt, his pursuers closing in fast from behind. His allies are stunned by his impossible knowledge, exclaiming he knows every inch of this place. Seeing no other way out, he orders them to fall back and run for their lives. With a desperate plan, he tells them to hide inside the very walls of the tunnel. He recalls the founder's motto, "When the enemy is stronger, strike where they least expect it." Together, they dig a new path forward, sealing the tunnel behind them to cover their escape. The shadowy pursuers arrive at the dead end, finding their prey has vanished without a trace. The furious assassin roars at his troops. "Did we lose them? Find them again, right now." His shadowy soldiers swarm the dead end, desperately searching for any sign of their vanished prey. Suddenly, one of the hunters discovers the ruse, shouting, "There are traces here." With their location exposed, the assassin gives a chilling command. "Dig through the wall, give chase." The relentless pursuers begin tearing through the earthen barrier, their claws closing in on the hidden rebels. On the other side, number 327 freezes in terror as he realizes their escape route has been discovered. "I can feel their vibrations," he warns his allies. "They noticed we're hiding inside the wall." He immediately takes charge, ordering them to block the rear while he digs a new path forward. But their desperate gambit hits a snag as he slams into a wall of impenetrable ivy roots. With no time to spare, The three fugitives are forced to navigate the treacherous root system as their enemies close in. After a desperate flight, number 327 finally stops, realizing, "I can't feel the vibrations of them chasing us anymore." His allies are relieved, but the question hangs in the air. Thank goodness, but what do we do now? Number 327 immediately forms a plan, declaring they will head to level 50 underground. He reveals their only hope. A mercenary unit of 30 soldiers is waiting there to join their cause. With renewed purpose, he rallies them forward, shouting, "Let's go to level 50 underground." The small band of rebels agrees, ready to meet the squad of 30 soldiers who will bolster their ranks. But in the twisting, featureless tunnels, a critical problem arises. But which way do we go? The answer lies not in sight, but in their very biology, an innate ability to navigate the darkness. Using the Johnston's organ in their antennae, they can sense the Earth's magnetic field, a perfect internal compass. Tapping into this power, number 327 confidently points the way forward, announcing, "We should go this way." They sense their position deep underground, between the grain store and the mushroom farm, but a sudden, dangerous chill fills the air as the temperature drops without warning. "Damn," he realizes, as the cold signals the coming of night and an unavoidable sleep. "Let's say goodbye for a while." His companion resigns, knowing they must hibernate to survive. The three rebels surrender to the cold, their revolution halted as they enter a deep slumber. Meanwhile, in the oppressive dark of the basement, a voice calls out, "Jonathan, it's me, Lucy." Her flashlight pierces the gloom as she steps onto the stone stairs, her calls echoing into nothing. Panic grips her as she pleads into the emptiness. "Jonathan, answer me, please." The suffocating silence breaks her resolve, and she collapses in on herself, whispering, "I'm scared." But her fear is answered by a cold, judgmental voice from a waking nightmare. "Lucy, you really are impossible." Lucy's eyes widen as the vision consumes her, trapping her in a painful memory from her past. Her mother's voice cuts through time, coldly telling a young Lucy, "Learn from your brothers." The woman's face twists with contempt as she warns her, "You must never marry a man like your father." She points a finger at a defeated man, spitting, "Just look at that pathetic excuse for a father of yours." Her voice rises to a scream, demanding how he can lead a family with such a miserable income. A small voice pleads, "Mom, what about me?" But her mother remains unmoved by her daughter's desperation. "Quiet," she roars, dismissing her completely, because this conversation is only about her precious brothers. The chilling lesson is repeated to the little girl, as her father stands broken in the background. The final judgment echoes in the memory as her father stands silently, branded by his wife's words, "Your father is useless." And in that moment, Lucy is forced to relive the image of her father's spirit completely breaking under the weight of that failure. Jonathan remains completely broken, his spirit shattered by her words. "Jonathan, I'm sorry," Lucy whispers, horrified that she pushed him too hard. She descends into the darkness, confessing her fear of becoming her mother. Overwhelmed with guilt, she can only repeat his name in a desperate apology. But her resolve hardens as she finally reaches the forbidden basement door. The very place where this nightmare began now holds the only answers. With a determined gaze, she prepares to confront the house's dark secret alone. Her hand closes around the cold handle, the click echoing in the suffocating silence. She pushes the door open, her flashlight cutting through the oppressive gloom, and with a single step, she crosses the threshold into the unknown. Her flashlight cuts through the darkness, revealing a vast, cavernous space unlike any basement she's ever seen. "It feels like another kind of space is beginning," she whispers, staring at a massive, fleshy pillar. Her eyes widen in disbelief, the sheer scale of this hidden world finally sinking in. But her discovery is cut short when her light falls upon fresh blood splattered across the floor. A horrifying realization dawns on her as she recognizes the source. Shouting, "Warzazade's blood!" She follows the crimson trail, realizing with dread, that little guy came this far without fear. The sound of her footstep echoes as she commits to following the path, no matter the danger. She carefully makes her way down the stone steps, her flashlight pushing back the oppressive darkness. A look of grim determination settles on her face, her fear replaced by the need to find him. Deeper and deeper she goes, each step taking her further into the heart of the house's monstrous secret. Lucy continues her descent into the cavernous, dark basement, her steps echoing. Suddenly, her light catches something horrifying, and she freezes, whispering, What's that?" Her hands tremble on the flashlight as she realizes there's something there, lurking just beyond the light. A sudden movement makes her recoil in shock, letting out a sharp gasp. Pure, unadulterated terror grips her as she lets out a blood-curdling scream. Her shriek echoes through the oppressive darkness of the underground passage. Meanwhile, back upstairs, Her son Nicholas stands alone, locked behind a door. He approaches the door cautiously, a faint, terrifying sound having reached his ears. He presses his ear to the wood, his face filled with concern. Sounded like something just now? He listens intently, completely unaware of the nightmare unfolding right beneath his feet. Nicholas peeks through the crack in his door, his eye wide with terror at the sounds from downstairs. But deep underground, a different drama unfolds as number 327 awakens. Sensing the rising temperature, he and his powerful ally, female Ant 56, believe they've finally shaken their pursuers, relieved to be safe. Then we'd better get moving, she urges, knowing the danger isn't truly over. With grim determination, he agrees, and they push forward into the darkness. Their destination is clear. They must descend further, all the way to level 50 underground. As the morning sun warms the earth above, it gives them the energy needed to resume their escape. Now warm enough to move, they start digging again, aiming for the safety of an ancient tunnel. It seems their plan worked. The rock-smelling traders haven't managed to follow them this far. But their relief shatters as they turn a corner and freeze. The way is blocked. Trapped in a new tunnel, the soldier ant asks, "What are these holes?" Number 327 dismisses the foul stench, claiming abandoned places always smell this way. But a strange rhythmic sound suddenly fills the air, putting them on high alert. Crickets, the soldier realizes. They're calling for mates to breed. Number 327 scoffs at their audacity, feeling like they're mocking the entire federal army. He recalls the wisdom of a former queen. It's better to strengthen your own strong points than control everything. But as his companion questions their mission, the ground begins to tremble violently. The tunnel floor suddenly explodes upwards as they cry out, "What's that?" A monstrous face bursts through the dirt, and the soldier screams in terror. "Ooh, a mole cricket." The colossal beast looms over them, an unexpected and horrifying new enemy blocking their path. The mole cricket lets out a final scream as it's dragged down into the collapsing earth. A swirling vortex of soil swallows the beast whole, allowing the ants to narrowly escape. They are violently thrown from the tunnel, landing hard in the dusty aftermath of the cave-in. Considering the swirling soil, we got off lightly, the soldier sighs, relieved they weren't eaten. But number 327 quickly silences him with a sharp gesture, warning them to be careful. Their relief turns to horror as they discover a writhing carpet of countless bedbugs blocking their path. These aren't just scavengers, they're known troublemakers that feed on the living just as readily as the dead. With a piercing screech, one of the creatures suddenly lunges forward to attack. Without a moment's hesitation, number 327 unleashes a powerful, concentrated blast of formic acid. The attack connects perfectly, sending the bedbug hurtling back into the swarm with overwhelming force. With the immediate threat neutralized, number 327 urges his companions to eat, knowing they need the strength. But they can't linger, quickly moving on before the rest of the ravenous swarm awakens. Their escape is immediately blocked by a bizarre, scaled ceiling raining down clods of earth, a seemingly impassable barrier. While his allies see only a dead end, number 327 confidently declares, "There is," spotting a hidden path. He leads them along a narrow, treacherous surface, forcing them to climb with extreme caution to avoid falling. They soon find moist soil, a sign they're nearing the surface, but a sudden halt from their leader raises questions. A sickening, unnatural smell fills the air, putting everyone on high alert for another living threat. Suddenly, a blur of motion erupts from the wall in a surprise attack too fast to comprehend. A strange projectile slams into the wall just inches from his head, fired by an unseen enemy. They stare in shock at the bizarre, fleshy missile, realizing they've stumbled into the territory of something far more dangerous. The fleshy projectile is instantly sliced apart, revealing its true nature. The rebels realize with horror they've stumbled into a nest of earthworms. Before they can react, a writhing horde of worms bursts from the ground, completely surrounding them. But one ant moves with impossible speed, tearing through the ambush with deadly precision. The ground is littered with severed worm segments, a testament to the ant's ferocious counter. He carves a path through the swarm, but for every enemy he fells, more rise to take its place. The sheer number of worms becomes overwhelming as they begin to constrict the ants. "They're coiling around our bodies," an ant cries out, their escape cut off by the crushing mass. Pinned down, number 327 makes a desperate call. Dissolve them with formic acid, everyone ready to fire. With a final command, they unleash a coordinated blast of corrosive acid, lighting up the darkness. The acid melts the worm horde into a writhing, bubbling sludge. "Let's get out of here, quickly," one ant shouts, shaking off the dissolving remains. The survivors flee deeper into the tunnels, racing toward a secret rendezvous point. But as they advance, a foul stench fills the air, growing stronger with every step. This was a compost dump, their guide reveals, The stench is our cover. He gestures to a solid wall, declaring their allies are just beyond it. My friends, I'm here, he calls out, entering the hidden chamber. But instead of a welcome, he's met with a scene of absolute carnage. Their comrades lie smashed to pieces, a brutal massacre that leaves them speechless. A burning rage consumes him as he screams, "WHO on Earth did this." At the very bottom level, number 327 suspects the assassins must have come from above, but he quickly dismisses the idea, realizing they never sensed anyone following them down. One of his soldiers begins digging into the floor, only to strike something hard that isn't soil. What is this? He wonders, staring at the strange, speckled surface he's uncovered. The group gathers around the discovery, realizing with a shock that it's solid granite. They find another patch of the same strange rock embedded in the earth nearby. Frantically, they dig everywhere, only to find the same impenetrable stone again and again. It's a massive granite formation, impossibly thick and wide, something that shouldn't exist here. The soldier realizes the horrifying truth. No one has ever heard of this rock, because it might have no end at all. This leaves number 327 with a chilling question. Does this impassable barrier mark the very edge of their world? The ants stare in horror, realizing they've reached the very edge of their world. Suddenly, a strange, sweet scent drifts through the air, catching one of the mercenaries by surprise. The entire group stops, now all detecting the alluring aroma that seems to be calling to them. The yellow ant recognizes it as honeydew, a sweet nectar his mother once spoke of. But this is no ordinary nectar. It's the scent of a lomacusa beetle. Once an ant develops a taste for this honeydew, nothing in the world can ever compare. It's a poison born from every craving imaginable, causing even the strongest warrior to collapse completely. An ant who drinks it might even survive after the beetle that provided it dies. But that survivor is doomed to leave the city, wandering like an addict, chasing a fix. They search until they collapse from exhaustion, their bodies covered in wounds from the agony of withdrawal. Number 327 questions why they don't simply destroy this seed of disaster before it can ever reach their city. He explains there are two ways to handle a problem. Either keep it away, or simply let it pass through. Letting the danger in isn't always a bad thing, he cryptically suggests. Because if the dosage is controlled, the deadly lomacusa secretion can actually become a powerful medicine. But the yellow ant gives in to the intoxicating scent, licking the beetle's secretion from his comrade. Me too, another whispers, as the yellow ant licks the beetle directly, completely overcome by its addictive power. Suddenly, one of them violently spits out the substance, rejecting the poison with a powerful heave. The world spins as the ant reels from the after effects, the addictive pull still echoing in its mind. This is no coincidence. Number 327 realizes lomacusa can't dig tunnels this deep. He concludes with chilling certainty that someone deliberately planted this trap here just to stop them. Let's search this area more thoroughly, the soldier commands, convinced they might find something. He carefully scans the ground, sensing there's definitely something hidden here. Number 327 moves with caution, his senses on high alert as he sweeps the area. Suddenly, a familiar smell hits him, a scent he can't quite place. The yellow ant picks up a small stone, exclaiming that it has a faint rock smell. He quickly pinpoints the source, realizing the smell is coming from under a larger rock. With immense strength, the soldier ant lifts the heavy boulder, revealing a dark, hidden entrance. He peers inside, his silhouette framed by the impossible discovery of a secret passage. The group stares down the perfectly straight tunnel, bored directly through solid granite. You can't make a hole in rock like this, the soldier declares, realizing their enemy is something else entirely. The soldier ant gasps, "Good grief," as he stares out from the newly discovered passage. Before them lies a vast, hidden storehouse, overflowing with what looks like an endless supply of food. It's an impossible amount, enough to sustain the entire city through 5 long winters. The yellow ant questions how such a massive reserve could possibly be hidden in a place like this. But number 327 realizes it was deliberately concealed, using a lomacusa beetle to block the entrance from anyone in the city. A chilling detail emerges as he notes everything in the chamber gives off the same faint, identical smell. What smell? The soldier asks, completely oblivious to the impending danger. With dawning horror, number 327 identifies the scent with a single, terrifying answer. Rock smell. The other 2 ants freeze, the horrifying implication hitting them all at once. That means the soldier stammers, finally understanding this treasure trove is nothing but a deadly illusion. The yellow ant looks on in utter confusion, completely missing the invisible danger his comrades can't sense. This is a granite cave. Number 327 explains calmly, but the horrifying implication hangs heavy in the air. His exhausted companions ignore the warning, rushing towards the feast and declaring, now this is the right call. But as they prepare to eat, Number 327's antennae vibrate furiously, processing every clue at impossible speeds. The rock-scented assassins, the Lomakusa beetle, the hidden storehouse, it all connects into one terrifying conspiracy. He realizes this is far beyond a few spies bought by the dwarf ants. If they're not just mercenaries, he wonders, staring at his ally, then what exactly are they? The female ant gravely agrees, sensing an enormous, highly organized threat behind it all. Just as the truth sinks in, a violent tremor suddenly throws them off balance. Her antennae twitch wildly as she screams a single, chilling word. Emergency! A level 2 alert suddenly blares through the tunnels, signaling imminent danger. We have to be with our people, the female ant commands, turning the group back towards the chaos. She leads the charge upward, their desperate escape echoing through the narrow passages. They push themselves to the limit, scrambling as fast as their legs can carry them. The rebels scramble past a large boulder, desperate to reach the surface. Moments later, the boulder shifts, sealing the path they just took. From the darkness, the assassin watches them go, relieved they didn't notice his trap. He melts back into the shadows, as a different message travels through the earth. Far away, a soldier screams the horrifying truth to a massive army. War! Lasolakang is under attack by the dwarf ant army. The urgent message spreads like wildfire. The western colony, Lasolakang, is under attack. A cry of war echoes through the nest as the army is ordered to march out and help their people. But at Lasolakang, the western colony of Balokan, the assault has already begun. A long acacia branch suddenly comes crashing down from the sky, aimed directly at their main entrance. Spinning with terrifying force, the branch utterly destroys the entrance, leaving it in ruins. The guard ants immediately launch a counterattack, swarming the colossal weapon. But their bravery is meaningless. In an instant, all of them are killed. Deep inside, the survivors hold their breath, praying for the branch's rampage to stop. The shockwave rips through the tunnels, blasting the defenders back with overwhelming force. In a final, devastating blow, the branch tears away the entire dome ceiling, exposing the colony to the world. Soldier ants fired relentlessly as the colossal branch tore through their home, but their formic acid was no match for the plant-based monster, leaving them trembling in fear. Just as exhaustion set in, the branch's devastating assault miraculously stopped. A deep, unnatural silence fell over the tunnels, followed by a blinding flash of light. The survivors could only tremble as a new, far more terrifying presence made itself known. Suddenly, a massive army of dwarf ants swarmed into the breach, a tide of death. The defenders fought back desperately, but their resistance was completely helpless against the invaders. In the blink of an eye, the battlefield was littered with the bodies of tens of thousands. The few survivors fled into a nearby pine stump, barely holding on as they ran to beg the Federation for aid. We have no food left, the messenger pleads, and they've already pushed into the Forbidden Zone. The Balokan Federation roars for war, vowing to send reinforcements to the struggling Lasolakang colony. The command echoes through the ranks, prepare to march, as the soldiers surge with anticipation. But a veteran mercenary voices caution, we can't march out right this moment, it's cold outside. The commander sets the grim schedule, declaring a fierce battle will break out at sunrise. A heavy silence falls over the army as the weight of the coming slaughter settles in. Meanwhile, back in the cursed house, young Nicholas is overwhelmed by tears and terror. When are Mom and Dad coming back up? He whispers, his hope finally shattering. With a desperate cry of I can't take this anymore, he bolts from his room. He runs through the empty streets with only one destination in mind, the local police station. Alone and terrified, the boy marches toward the only help he believes is left. An officer listens with wide-eyed disbelief to the boy's story. My mom and dad disappeared into the basement, Nicholas cries out, his voice trembling. He claims they were killed by rats or ants, a detail the officer can barely comprehend. The boy collapses, pleading, please, save my mom and dad, as a senior officer arrives. This older detective, clearly in charge, steps forward to handle the bizarre situation. Soon after, they arrive at the family's seemingly ordinary house, the source of this impossible tale. Standing before the basement door, the detective's voice cuts the tension. Kid, is that true? He points into the darkness, confirming with Nicholas that his parents are truly down there. The detective holds the exhausted boy, his own expression grim as he processes the child's fear. His partner calls into the abyss. Hello, if you can hear me, answer, but only an oppressive silence responds. The officer calls into the oppressive darkness, his voice echoing unanswered into the abyss. He pulls back, stunned, realizing the shaft is incredibly deep and they'll need equipment to go down. The senior detective nervously agrees, a grim understanding dawning on his face. I'll go and get the fire brigade, the officer declares, leaving his partner to question the traumatized child. The detective's attention is then drawn to a heavy padlock securing a different door nearby. He turns to the boy, asking with a pointed finger, "Did your mom do that?" Nicholas looks down, his voice barely a whisper as he confirms. Yes. The detective is floored, remarking that few women have the skills to crack open a steel-reinforced door. He continues, calling her one of a kind for daring to brave such a deep, dark shaft alone. But the boy corrects him with chilling finality. Mom went down to find Dad, and it's not a sewer, it's a basement. I see, the detective says, finally understanding the gravity of the situation. He leans in, his voice serious. How long ago did your parents go down there? Nicholas looks up, his eyes hollow as he answers with a single, chilling phrase. 2 days ago. The officer is stunned, realizing 2 whole days underground without food is a very bad sign. He presses on, trying to understand the root of this madness. So why did your dad go down to the basement in the first place? The boy explains that at first, his father was just looking for their dog, but after that he wasn't so sure. Nicholas then reveals his father's bizarre obsession, buying steel plates and a whole bunch of books about ants. Ants? The detective repeats, completely baffled by the strange new detail. The officer strokes his chin, lost in thought as he considers the impossible implications. He finally concludes that this case won't be easy, realizing it's a completely unpredictable one. The officer struggles to connect a missing man with an obsession with ants. But then, Nicholas adds another bizarre clue to the pile, mentioning matchsticks. Matchsticks? The officer asks, completely bewildered by the sudden shift in topic. The boy then reveals a cryptic riddle from his father. Make 4 triangles with only 6 matchsticks. The officer scoffs. What kind of nonsense is that? But Nicholas insists his father said it was the key. Intrigued despite himself, the detective leans in, asking for the answer to the impossible puzzle. It's a new way of thinking, Nicholas explains, calling it a new logic his father discovered. The words new logic hit the veteran officer like a ton of bricks, shaking his understanding of the case. Flustered, the officer can only stammer, unable to grasp the strange new direction of the investigation. But the boy explodes with frustration, screaming that they have to solve the riddle to save his parents. Ants, Grandpa Edmund, matchsticks, the boy screams. It's all connected. The senior officer freezes, stunned by the mention of a name he doesn't recognize. Who is that? He demands, trying to piece together this impossible puzzle. But the story shifts to a young man named Bilshung, whose life revolves around a single phrase. Well, I suppose. This simple reply makes him the perfect listener, someone who never dismisses even the wildest of stories. Even when his friends ramble on with complete nonsense, he just listens intently. He simply nods along, his thoughtful expression making everyone feel heard and understood. I knew you'd understand. His friend beams, completely won over by his passive agreement. This simple trick has made him so popular that he's nominated for the end-of-term speech. But his strategy of quiet acceptance backfires, leaving him stunned as the class erupts in applause. Years later, Bilshung's agreeable nature made him a police officer, quickly catching the eye of his superiors. As a result, every bizarre and unbelievable case got dumped right on his desk. He was even assigned a new partner, Detective Galling, for a case involving a cryptic riddle about triangles. Meanwhile, back at the station, Nicholas frantically explains the connection. Ants, Grandpa Edmund, matchsticks, it's all connected. He was my paternal grandfather, the boy reveals. Leaving the senior officer to process the strange new lead, Nicholas continues, saying his grandfather wrote a mysterious encyclopedia before he died, blaming it on rats. Rats? The officer asks, completely bewildered by the boy's bizarre testimony. The boy's fury builds, as he insists the rats were also responsible for killing something called Warzazate. The senior officer is left utterly speechless, unable to make any sense of the child's wild claims. He can only wonder what kind of future this boy has, thinking, best case scenario, an alcoholic. Chief Inspector Bilshung, I've brought the firefighters, Detective Galling reports, as his team stands ready for the descent. The chief inspector gives a grim nod of approval, acknowledging his most trusted detective for these bizarre situations. Galling steels himself, the one and only partner in his chief's unofficial lunatic cases unit. We'll go in and bring them out, the rescue team promises, leaving the boy in the chief's care. With that, the officers and firefighters march forward, disappearing into the oppressive darkness of the basement. The chief inspector can only watch them go, deciding it's best to wait with the traumatized child. The open door looms like the entrance to another world, swallowing all light and hope. Deep inside, the team cautiously descends the stone steps, their flashlights barely piercing the suffocating blackness. But what they find at the bottom is not a basement, it's a monstrous, organic chamber of unknown origin. Meanwhile, in a world unseen, a powerful ant queen coldly dismisses her subordinate, demanding to be left alone. The queen considers the coming war, knowing there is nothing new to be anxious about, and yet, she can't shake the thought of the enemy's secret weapon. She recalls the impossible report of a spinning branch that could destroy their entire home, and the massacre, number 327 witnessed, makes her wonder if she's being too careless. Let me think, she muses, remembering they've faced such threats before. Long ago, during the war with the termites, a unit of 120 soldiers was found paralyzed. They weren't dead, but they couldn't move a single inch, utterly helpless. Spies had revealed the termites' technological superiority, a caste that could shoot a sticky, toxic substance. But her colony had devised a strategy, advancing with fallen leaves as shields to secure a legendary victory. The problem is, this new enemy is far more intelligent and agile than the termites ever were. The queen recalls the story of the dwarf ants, who first entered their lands 100 years ago. At first, they were just a few tiny scouts, completely ignored and dismissed as no threat. But soon they swarmed in with eggs and supplies, making their first humble nest beneath a great pine. Their entire colony was nearly wiped out overnight by a single starving hedgehog. The few survivors fled north, settling dangerously close to the territory of the black ants. The Balokan Empire assumed these weaklings would be nothing more than food for their powerful neighbors. But then, the impossible happened. The dwarf ants began hunting massive prey, while the black ants vanished without a trace. They had conquered the entire black ant nest, a feat the Balokan ants dismissed as a fluke of arrogance. Those fools, they scoffed, always relying on their size to act tough. But then they seized a honeybee nest, the last termite city, and even a fortress of venomous red ants. The day the Balokan city of Nijunakong fell, the dwarf ants became a threat that could no longer be ignored. The very next day, a legion of 1,200 soldier ants descended upon the city to reclaim it. But as the victorious soldiers entered the liberated tunnels, they found something deeply unsettling. Huddled in the darkness were over 200 dwarf ant queens, a biological impossibility. How can there be 200 queens? They gasped, a discovery that shattered their understanding of the world. The captured queens then revealed an extraordinary history of their lost homeland, a paradise without winter. Their entire civilization was unknowingly uprooted, trapped within the soil of a single oleander tree. This crate was then loaded onto an impossibly large structure that carried them away. When they reached the edge, a vast, deadly expanse of salt water stretched out before them. The few who survived the journey to this distant land were met only with bitter disappointment. In this harsh new land, the dwarf ants' greatest enemy was the brutal, unforgiving winter. To survive, they developed a bizarre symbiosis, coating themselves in snail secretions to endure the freezing temperatures. This harsh evolution stripped them of their wings, forcing them to abandon the traditional nuptial flight of other species. Instead of a single monarch, their colonies evolved to support hundreds of queens, a decentralized system built for survival. This made them fundamentally different from the fire ants, whose entire civilization could be toppled by killing a single queen. A lone dwarf ant scout ventures out, exploring the new and hostile territory. From the shadows, the scout witnesses the strange hierarchy of the fire ants, centered around their winged royalty. The fire ant queen sizes up the tiny intruder, remarking with cold curiosity, "What an efficient body." But the thought of war against these strange, multi-queened invaders fills Queen Velokiokyukiuni with a deep and troubling unease. She knew this new enemy, born from hardship, would be unlike any she had ever faced before. Faced with an impossible enemy, Queen Velokiokyukiuni declares with grim resolve, "We have to find a way." Unlike other species, ants are the only insects that maintain true assault armies, built for conquest. While termites and honeybees have soldiers, their forces are strictly defensive, merely protecting their nests and workers. These societies rarely wage war for new territory, but ants are different. A lone researcher, Edmund, once chronicled this brutal truth in the dead of night. Meanwhile, a specialized gardener ant tends to a strange, pulsating fungus deep within the colony. Suddenly, the fungus reacts to its touch, vibrating with a strange and unknown power. The queen realizes there's only one way to answer the dwarf ant's terrifying secret weapon. "We invent something stronger," she vows, "and even more terrifying." After all, the fire ants were the ones who pioneered formic acid and countless other weapons of war. The queen issues a dire command. "Find a weapon to counter the dwarf ant's terrifying new power." "Yes, ma'am," her loyal soldier responds, ready for the mission. The entire colony mobilizes, their mandibles clicking in unison for the coming war. Meanwhile, back in the human world, a chilling warning echoes in the darkness. "Don't trust anything down here." Detective Galling leads his team into the abyss, cautiously descending the narrow, crumbling steps. But the oppressive darkness swallows his weak flashlight beam, forcing him to demand a more powerful light. A firefighter hands over a heavy-duty lamp, its beam cutting a stark white path into the gloom. He takes it, realizing with dread just how unstable and rotten the passage walls truly are. Who knew it would go this deep, he mutters, stunned by the sheer depth of the hidden basement. And then, a horrifying message scrawled on the wall reveals the true nature of this hellish place. Woe to those who fall into hell, the ancient text warns. A chilling omen carved into the stone. Looks like a warning, Gawling mutters, his flashlight revealing the carving's true age. A firefighter tries to dismiss the growing dread, telling the others not to freak out. But the detective is more disturbed by the impossible depth of the passage than any sorcerer's formula. When asked about the inscription, he clarifies his true fear. No, I mean the stairs. The team descends into an abyss that seems to go on forever, already 150 meters deep. Suddenly, the stone walls give way to something organic and blood-soaked, twisting into the darkness below. A strange, clear liquid begins to drip from the grotesque ceiling, each drop echoing in the silence. One lands on Gayling's face, its shocking coldness making him cry out in surprise. His men finally begin to question the mission, reminding him, "We're not a cave rescue team, you know. I thought this was just a simple basement rescue," a firefighter complains, the mission spiraling into madness. But Detective Gayling refuses to turn back, insisting they're too close to the bottom to give up now. He reminds them their only job is to find the kids' parents, no matter what this place is. His men, however, see the growing absurdity of a rescue where the victims must first be found in an endless abyss. Staring down the twisting, organic passage, the real question hangs in the air. Why did anyone come down here? Even if they find the couple alive, they realize getting them back up through this nightmare will be almost impossible. Meanwhile, deep underground in a hidden city, a new strategy is born from a collective mind. I've got it. The plan is terrifyingly simple. In the coming war, they will unleash the day ants as their ultimate weapon. The soldiers are stunned by the order, questioning the use of such a notorious mercenary force. For the day ants are a special class of hired killer, a force unlike any other in Belican's army. The day ants are living weapons, with massive heads and mandibles that can shatter even the toughest shells. But their power comes at a cost, as their short legs make them almost useless in a direct fight. With such stubby legs, they burn all their strength just crawling, unable to even land a proper hit. A soldier who once bragged about his strength is instantly crushed, dying without a fight. But the yellow ants devised a terrifying new strategy. Smaller workers move together with a single, massive female. The smaller ants act as a living turret, commanding rotate right to aim their unstoppable weapon. With a thunderous crack, the living artillery fires, unleashing devastating power. Their insane power inspires the army as the yellow ant roars, "Let's go sweep up every last dwarf ant." And just like that, in the depths of Belican, the very concept of artillery was born. As a new day dawns, the world above remains oblivious to the war brewing beneath. A peaceful morning dawns over the forest, hiding the war below. But a commander's cry shatters the silence. "Brave ants of Belokang, move out." An entire army marches with a single purpose, to save the western colony of Lasalakang. Yet, the first signs of bloodshed already stain the battlefield. Meanwhile, in the world above, the sky remains deceptively calm. Life continues as normal around the now infamous Fontainebleau townhouse. People go about their day, completely unaware of the horror that unfolded. A woman scrolls through her phone, lost in her own world. But the news finally breaks. 8 firefighters and a police officer have vanished into the basement. The shocking headline spreads, leaving the public stunned by the impossible disappearance. At his desk, Detective Bilshung groans under the immense pressure of the impossible case. Suddenly, his office phone begins to ring, shattering the tense silence. He stares at the device in utter horror, knowing it can only be more bad news. Every ring amplifies his dread, as the case spirals completely out of control. Unable to bear it, he clutches his head, wishing the nightmare would end. The relentless ringing fills the room, a sound he can no longer ignore. But this crisis began long ago, with Argentine ants first landing in France in 1920. They arrived as stowaways in wooden crates, hidden among beautiful oleander trees. From Argentina, they spread across the globe, an unstoppable and silent invasion. This species has 2 key traits. They are deceptively small, and they are legion. But their most terrifying traits are that they're clever and aggressive. In a dark room, Edmund slams his fist down, consumed by the brutal strategy of insect warfare. On the battlefield, the dwarf ants unleash a terrifying new power, screaming fire as they obliterate the defenders. The fire ant army buckles under the assault, their bodies piling up as the invaders charge forward without pause. It's a complete massacre, with the dwarf ants tearing through the fire ant soldiers one by one. The defenders are overwhelmed and systematically slaughtered, their lines completely broken by the relentless enemy. The invaders punch all the way through to the forbidden zone, their advance seemingly unstoppable. They finally reach the antechamber, their war cry echoing through the tunnels. "Find the Fire Ant Queen." A lone gatekeeper stands guard, desperately questioning why reinforcements haven't arrived at the Queen's chamber. Knowing it's the final stand, it gives a desperate order to its soldiers. "Melt the door, fire the formic acid." With the Queen's glory fading, the last gatekeeper laments that this is the end of everything. In a final, desperate act, it prepares to pull out its heart needle, a suicidal last resort. But it's too late, as the invaders cheer their success, finally breaking through the final defense. The yellow ants swarm forward, their advance now completely unstoppable. They pour into the chamber, a relentless tide of death and destruction. Their forces surge over the bodies of the fallen, trampling the last hope of the fire ants. But just as victory seems certain, the defenders notice something completely unexpected. A soldier cries out in disbelief. The dwarf ants are pulling back, leaving everyone stunned. The entire invading army suddenly turns and flees in a panicked retreat. A lone soldier screams back in terror. "Sound the alarm! What's happening out there?" A lone yellow ant scout peers over the edge, witnessing a vast, unnerving field of red flowers. The wind whispers through the blood-red poppies, carrying an ominous sound across the battlefield. Suddenly, a small spark ignites on the ground, a tiny flicker of what's to come. Then, a single Belican fire ant appears, climbing with grim determination. The yellow ant scout cries out in alarm, "The Belican ants," as the trap is sprung. But their commander scoffs at the sight, sneering, "Pathetic fools. They've marched right into their own graves." He immediately issues a command: send a swarm of gnat couriers across the city. The message is a dire warning. Boom Boom is on the move. Send reinforcements east, and hit them from both sides. As the courier takes flight, the commander gives one final, chilling order. Prepare the secret weapon, and in that instant, the entire field erupts in a blinding flash of light, unleashing their terrifying new power. At dawn, the Belican fire ants begin their relentless march up the ancient route. With a furious battle cry, a lone warrior surges forward, signaling the start of the war. After years of waiting, the Belican army launches a lightning-fast assault to reclaim their honor. But the dwarf ants lie in wait, their commander whispering, "Just you wait, wait for it." The brave fire ants pour over the battlefield, a crimson tide of unstoppable fury. Yet, the dwarf ant commander remains calm, recognizing their predictable tactic with cold certainty. "And we already saw it coming," he thinks, as his forces gaze upon the perfectly laid trap. Suddenly, the ground gives way, and the first fire ant is brutally impaled from below. Panic erupts as the charging army realizes it's a massive ambush, with death lurking in every shadow. From the darkness, the final order is given: "Dwarf ants now, charge!" The yellow ants burst from the ground, a golden wave of death. The fire ants are completely surrounded, with a desperate soldier screaming, "Enemy on the left flank too!" Their commander reveals the perfect strategy: an infantry force 10 times their number was lying in wait. With a terrifying laugh, he screams the final command: "Die, Belican fire ants!" The battlefield descends into chaos as the yellow ants unleash a brutal human wave tactic, overwhelming their foes. The slaughter is absolute, with fire ants being torn limb from limb without a chance to fight back. A fire ant commander roars in defiance, "Don't you dare die until you've taken down at least 5 dwarf ants." He fights desperately against the tide, but even his strength is nothing against these annoying pests. The grim reality sets in. They can't reach the ambushers hidden underground, and they are hopelessly outnumbered. With his army being annihilated, the commander makes the only choice left. "We can't win like this, retreat." The fire ants are forced into a desperate retreat, scrambling up the hill to regroup their broken lines. Their enemy, the yellow ant commander, laughs triumphantly. Look at them running with their tails between their legs. He gives the final, brutal command to his forces: "Run them down, leave no survivors." The ground itself trembles as the massive yellow army thunders forward in a relentless pursuit. A lone fire ant glances back, seeing the enemy closing in fast, promising a swift and merciless end. But as the yellow horde closes the distance, one of the retreating soldiers suddenly halts, turning to face the onslaught. The pursuers mock their prey's weakness, convinced the smaller fire ants are too slow to escape their wrath. Their bloodthirsty cries to kill the Belican fire ants echo across the battlefield as they charge for the final slaughter. But then, the fire ant commander reveals the horrifying truth. "At last, we've dragged them onto the hillside." At the top of the ridge, a fresh line of warriors stands ready, having turned a hopeless retreat into a perfect trap. The fire ants dig furiously into the earth, their claws tearing through the soil to erect a defensive line. The pursuing yellow ants halt in confusion as a massive, spiked wall of earth erupts from the ground, blocking their path. From behind the barricade, a gatekeeper ant with massive mandibles prepares to unleash a devastating new tactic. The Yellow Army freezes, a crack appearing on their leader's face as they realize the gravity of their mistake. "Charge!" roars the commander, as the gatekeeper ant becomes a living battering ram, hurtling down the hill. Its armored head glows with immense force, striking the ground with the power of a meteor. The shockwave sends the front line of yellow ants flying, their bodies twisting helplessly through the air. Its colossal mandibles clamp down, unleashing a spray of acid that melts through everything in its path. The yellow soldiers are instantly bisected, their ranks utterly shattered by the brutal, overwhelming assault. What was once a confident army is now just a sea of horrified faces, staring at the monster they foolishly provoked. The gatekeeper ant stands firm, a living fortress against the swarming yellow army. With a red ant rider on its back, the living weapon smashes through the enemy lines. Its armored head connects with a sickening crunch, shattering the first wave of attackers. It swings its head like a club, sending soldiers flying like broken dolls. "Move out, Chariot King!" the rider roars, unleashing the beast's full power. The Chariot King plows forward like an unstoppable train as the yellow soldiers scream, "Run for it!" Panic breaks their ranks, with soldiers tripping and falling in a desperate attempt to escape. One soldier's leg snaps beneath it, leaving it utterly helpless on the ground. Their discipline shatters completely as soldiers shove each other aside, screaming, "Clear a path!" The battlefield descends into pure chaos as the Chariot King tears through the disorganized mob. From the high ground, the Balokan forces watch the yellow ants scatter in terror. "Our sisters from Balokan have come to save La Sola River." A soldier cries out in triumph. She declares their victory a triumph of skill and intelligence over brute force. Their victory cries echo through the tunnels. Long live the Balokan Federation. But below, the battlefield is a grim testament to the absolute carnage that just unfolded. "Impossible," a yellow ant commander mutters, realizing their conventional tactics have utterly failed. With no other choice, he screams the desperate order, "Bring out the secret weapon!" From the shadows emerge soldiers carrying a grotesque burden, a corpse-blooming fungus known as alternaria. This horrifying weapon was discovered inside a corpse that had swollen and burst from the inside. Now, wielding this volatile agent, they prepare to unleash biological warfare and rainfire down on the fire ants. The spores eat away at a fire ant's shell, growing inside until they finally burst the body apart. These spores are deadly to fire ants, but they don't stick to the chitin of us turtle ants. When asked why, the commander reveals their secret adaptation for surviving the cold. "We've strapped snail shells to our backs," he declares, revealing their perfect counter. With their immunity confirmed, the yellow ants unleash a devastating volley of the fungal weapon. The biological projectiles rain down, striking the unprepared red ant soldiers with horrifying accuracy. The moment the spores make contact, the fire ant's shells begin to melt and corrode. A soldier can only watch in terror, stammering, What is that?" as his comrades are consumed. Even their allies are caught in the crossfire, screaming, "Help me," as the red ants abandon them. But his cries are ignored as he's left to die, screaming, "How can you just leave me here?" The battlefield falls silent, littered with the dead beneath a field of blooming poppies. But the terrifying fungus spreads rapidly, consuming the fallen and turning the ground into a wasteland. As a biting cold rolls in, the red ant commander screams, "Fall back to the main line, all of you." The yellow ants also begin a panicked retreat, realizing the sudden weather change is a new, deadly threat. "We should pull out too while we can," one of them yells, their previous confidence completely shattered. Both armies break formation, scrambling to escape the freezing air that threatens to kill them all. But for many, it's too late, as soldiers from both sides are instantly frozen solid where they stand. Even the vibrant poppies, symbols of the battle, are now encased in a layer of deadly ice. A voice cries out, "No," as the entire field of life is transformed into a frozen graveyard. A surviving soldier finally understands the horror, explaining, "What the enemy hurled at us were alternaria spores. Any soldier hit by the spores is as good as dead, fated to die in unbearable agony." But one commander refuses to accept defeat, his eyes burning with grim determination. He rallies his troops with a final, desperate cry, for Balokan's sake. One by one, soldiers make the ultimate sacrifice for their home. The battlefield becomes a mountain of corpses, a testament to their devastating losses. But amidst the despair, a new strategy emerges, a way to shield themselves from the germ weapon. The secret to their survival is revealed to be something utterly bizarre: sticky snail mucus. The bizarre order is given: "Everyone coat your whole body in snail slime." As the poppies bloom over the fallen, a new hope begins to rise from the ashes of defeat. But their new armor isn't enough. They'll need their heavy chariot units and flanking infantry to win this war. The red ant commander reveals their new strategy: declaring, "The chariots will block the front." A massive army of 120 infantry and 60 trainees assembles, spreading out like wings. Confident in their overwhelming power, the commander smirks. Our odds just went up. But across the battlefield at Clock River, a lone fly scout witnesses the terrifying advance. It returns with a panicked report, screaming, "Clock River is being pushed back. Send reinforcements immediately." The yellow ants are stunned by the news of the enemy's secret weapon. What? Chariots? Faced with this unstoppable new force, a soldier asks in despair, "How do we beat that?" In a moment of desperation, the commanders put their heads together, searching for any solution. As their antennae touch, a brilliant golden light erupts, signaling a shared breakthrough. A commander's eyes widen with sudden inspiration as he shouts, "There is a way!" The commander reveals his brutal plan. Simple. Just cut off their legs. A soldier looks up, confused by the seemingly impossible order. He explains the powerful Reaper ants are useless without their worker carriers, so they must be crippled. But a subordinate points out the obvious flaw: the Reapers will shred anyone who gets close. "There's a way around that too," the commander declares, ordering them to pool their antenna and share the vision. A blinding flash of insight spreads through the ranks as the complex strategy is revealed. At precisely 11:47 a.m., the sun breaks through the clouds, signaling the start of the operation. The key to their entire strategy lies hidden within a vast field of vibrant orange flowers. On the high ground, winged units begin linking up with the frontier posts, climbing into position. With the plan in motion, the entire yellow army swarms forward to execute the impossible counterattack. The terrifying mandibles of the Reaper ants rise over the ridge, ready to slice through anything in their path. But this is a new kind of threat, as the Red Army unveils their unstoppable Reaper ant chariot units. With fire ant infantry flanking the chariots, the entire Belican army roars advance in a single, earth-shaking wave. The yellow commander, however, remains unfazed by their formation, calmly stating, "We didn't come empty-handed either." With a final war cry, the red warriors of Belican charge forward in a seemingly unstoppable tide of death. In response, the Clocker dwarf ants surge to meet them, ready to prove their strength against impossible odds. Just as the armies are about to collide in a storm of violence, their commander holds them back with a single word: "Wait." Then, at the perfect moment, he screams the order to scatter to the flanks and open the center. The yellow army splits perfectly, creating a massive, inviting corridor for the charging enemy to rush headlong into. As the red army is funneled into the kill zone, the commander declares, "Now's our chance." The yellow commander's true plan is unleashed with a single command: cut the Reaper ant warrior's legs. His soldiers swarm with terrifying precision, biting deep into the abdomens of the charging red ants. The unstoppable living chariots are brought crashing down, their immense power completely neutralized by the coordinated assault. With surgical strikes, the yellow ants sever the antennae, breaking the crucial link between the Reapers and their worker ant drivers. Once this connection is lost, the entire two-ant unit has no choice but to completely fall apart. "Now, swarm them," the commander roars, unleashing his army upon the crippled and confused enemy. Unable to flee on their broken legs, the mighty Reaper ants are slashed to pieces, crying out in agony. Panicked worker ants, still hauling the burst-open corpses of their partners, run blindly without any direction. The out-of-control chariots smash into each other, creating a chain reaction of carnage that decimates their own ranks. Unbelievable. A lone survivor gasps in horror, realizing the entire red ant unit was wiped out in an instant. "The red ant chariots are completely useless now," the yellow commander declares, his forces poised for the kill. With their enemy's trump card shattered, he orders a full-scale advance on the reeling red ants. Panicked, the Red Army scrambles up a hill, desperately trying to regroup their broken lines. They know they must hold the high ground against the oncoming swarm to survive. A desperate new strategy forms as a soldier shouts, "Roll boulders down the hillside." With immense effort, the red ants heave massive rocks over the cliff's edge. An avalanche of stone thunders down towards the charging yellow army below. "Rocks, get clear!" a soldier screams as the ground trembles beneath them. The crude but effective bombardment smashes into their ranks, crushing soldiers instantly. Yet, even after the ambush, the yellow ants charge again, roaring to wipe them all out. The yellow army is still pushing forward, dodging the debris, forcing the red ants to find a new strategy. A grim determination fills their leader's eyes as he declares, "Let's fight the old-fashioned way." He digs his legs into the earth, rallying his troops with a simple, brutal truth: the way we fight best. With a single command, "Fire!" the entire clifftop erupts in a blinding, golden volley of death from above. Beams of concentrated acid slam into the yellow ranks, melting through their exoskeletons with agonizing screams. The red commander knows that at this range, they can finally unleash their devastating formic acid attack without any risk. The ground becomes a horrifying swamp of sizzling, dissolving bodies as the chemical rain continues to fall. Don't stop! The order rings out as the relentless bombardment intensifies, turning the battlefield into a slaughterhouse. But the Yellow Army's resolve is unbreakable, their commander screaming, "Charge! The high ground is right ahead. Human wave tactics." They press on through the carnage, even as their comrades' heads explode in bursts of molten chitin. A yellow soldier collapses, its body sizzling under the acid rain. Without hesitation, another warrior uses the melting corpse as a stepping stone. "I give my life to pave the way," they scream, climbing over the dead. From above, the red commander roars, "Keep firing," unleashing another devastating volley. But the yellow horde screams in defiance, finally breaking through the kill zone. The red commander's eyes widen in alarm, shouting, "They're coming! Brace for close combat!" With a final command to charge, the red soldiers abandon their high ground to meet them. The two armies finally collide in a chaotic, brutal melee of snapping mandibles. But the red commander reveals a chilling truth. Everything is already decided before the battle even begins. This suicidal charge, he knows, is just confirming an outcome both sides have already accepted. A subordinate questions his commander's cryptic statement about the nature of their war. The commander's answer is a single, chilling word: morale. He explains that victory ultimately comes down to resolve, the sheer belief that you will win. If you do, he declares, there's nothing you can't overcome. But as the subordinate acknowledges him, the commander's hardened expression tells a different story. His philosophy is shattered in the chaos of battle, as he realizes one-on-one resolve means nothing against a swarm. With a furious roar, he gives the only answer possible in this desperate situation: you kill them. Overwhelmed and facing certain death, he screams in defiance, "Like hell, I'm dying alone." He unleashes his final, desperate gambit, a suicidal explosion of formic acid, meant to take everyone with him. His body melts away in a final, agonizing scream, dissolving his enemies in a shared, gruesome fate. The massive red ant recoils in pain, caught off guard by the smaller soldier's ferocity. With a furious roar, it bites down on its foe, screaming, "One!" The crushing force intensifies as it continues its brutal count. "Twoo!" It shatters the smaller ant's head, finishing the kill, 3-4. But its victory is short-lived, as a massive swarm of yellow ants suddenly surrounds it. As a fifth soldier appears, the red ant's rage boils over. It lets out a defiant war cry, "Fight! We're going to win!" But the yellow ants charge as one, their commander screaming, "Kill those fire ants!" In the ensuing chaos, the red soldier is suddenly impaled, crying out in agony. It's completely overwhelmed, torn limb from limb by the relentless yellow tide. The last of the red soldiers are swarmed, their bodies completely overwhelmed by the yellow tide. Their carapaces explode as they are brutally torn to pieces. But even as they fall, another red ant grabs its foe, refusing to die alone. Suddenly, the yellow ants unleash their ultimate weapon, deadly Alternaria spores. Their commander laughs maniacally. "Enjoy your spores and explode to death." Yet, the fire ants are completely unfazed, calmly feasting on their enemies amidst the toxic cloud. The yellow tactician can only stare in disbelief as his trump card fails. A monstrous gatekeeper ant then smashes through their lines, turning the tide with overwhelming force. "Too bad for you," a red soldier sneers, revealing their secret. "We coated ourselves in snail slime too." By 3 p.m., the battle has completely reversed, with the red ants now dominating the field. By 4 p.m., the red ant stands victorious over the fallen yellow soldiers. An hour later, a heavy rain begins to fall upon the battlefield. Dark clouds gather, swallowing the sky in an ominous gloom. The storm rages over the field of poppies, a somber memorial to the fallen. But this is no ordinary storm, as a sudden flash of lightning tears through the clouds. Revealed in the light is a monstrous dark creature, held aloft by its ant servants. It's dropped into the flooded battlefield, unleashing a devastating shockwave. The remaining yellow ants are thrown into chaos, completely helpless against the deluge. As the downpour intensifies, the survivors struggle desperately against the rising tide. A dark, hulking shape moves through the floodwaters, a new nightmare born from the storm. The actors leave the stage, their final act a swirling, watery grave. Only the rain remains, washing the battlefield clean of its tragedy. The cost of this war is staggering. 5 million dead. Of them, 4 million were dwarf ants, a near-total annihilation. The city of Lasolakang is retaken, but the victory is a hollow one. This slaughter raises a chilling question. Do ants even feel pain? According to old research, they lack the nervous system to process it. That's why even when their bodies are cut off, they keep moving. If there's no pain, there's no fear, and perhaps no sense of self. And from this terrifying emptiness, their unbreakable cohesion is born. For a long time, entomologists believed ants were simple, unfeeling creatures. This theory made it easy to kill them without a second thought. But he found the idea of a painless animal truly terrifying, because he knew the truth. The idea that ants don't feel pain is completely wrong. When an ant's head is cut off, it releases a special chemical scent, a signal of pure agony. Their pain is different from ours, a complex system he desperately tried to understand. But of one thing he was certain. There is no doubt that they feel it, and as rain falls on a distant field, a new consciousness begins to stir. Covered in a strange, thick liquid, a lone ant struggles to rise from the mud. With a single thought echoing in its mind, it whispers a word it shouldn't know. Home. The reborn ant struggles from the mud with a single, desperate thought. I have to go home. His mind, a blank slate, fixates on the sky, consumed by an instinctual urge to return. But this story also unfolds elsewhere, at a place called Sybarite Daycare. Inside, a lone silhouette watches the world from a second-story window, completely isolated. It's a young Nicholas, his face a mask of quiet indifference and deep-seated weariness. He gazes down at the other children fighting, a brutal, chaotic scene he feels no part of. Suddenly, a voice cuts through his thoughts. Hey, what's your name? Two older boys block the doorway, their expressions promising nothing but trouble for the newcomer. Nicholas stands alone in his new room, a silent target in a world he already wants to escape. The bullies get in his face, aggressively demanding his name. You deaf or what? But Nicholas just glares back, his silence a wall of defiance. When someone talks to you, you answer. The blonde one screams, his patience completely gone. The larger boy tries to de-escalate, telling his friend Philippe he's scaring the new kid. He then turns to Nicholas, asking the one question that hangs in the air. So, why are you here? Nothing happened, Nicholas mutters, his back turned to them, hiding a world of pain. But the bully doesn't buy it, insisting that kids his age don't just end up in a place like this. That's when Philippe leans in with a vicious whisper. I heard his mom and dad got eaten alive by ants. The cruel words finally break him, and with pure rage in his eyes, Nicholas screams, keep running your mouths, and I'll kill you. The larger bully grabs Nicholas as Philippe sneers that this brat needs to be taught some manners. See? Told you, Philippe gloats, insisting that kids like this have to be broken in early, but his friend suddenly freezes, a look of pure shock washing over his face. A sharp blow to the throat forces him to release his grip. With a look of cold fury, Nicholas turns his attention to Philippe and charges forward. He slams the blonde bully to the floor, completely turning the tables on his tormentors. Whoa, it worked? Nicholas thinks, stunned that a move he copied from TV was real. But the other bully glares up from the ground, his humiliation quickly turning to rage. I'm gonna kill you, he screams, his face contorted in pure fury. The larger bully is slammed to the ground, but the fight is far from over. Nice, Philippe hisses, deciding to give the brat a little taste of true cruelty. He reveals his disgusting surprise, a handful of crushed ants he prepared just for this moment. The tables turn instantly as the two bullies pin Nicholas down, snarling, this is your fault. I'll let the ants eat you too, Philippe sneers, bringing the insects right to Nicholas's face. With a sadistic laugh, he shoves the dead things into the boy's mouth, calling it punishment for acting tough. Nicholas gags in horror, desperately trying to spit them out, but their grip is too strong. Swallow it, Philippe commands, clamping a hand over his mouth to force the vile punishment down. And as the rain begins to fall, the bullies can only laugh, their cruel task complete. Philippe forces the disgusting insects into Nicholas's mouth, certain of his victory. But instead of terror, the boy's eyes widen with a strange, unnerving curiosity. The bullies can only smirk, completely oblivious that their cruel game has just taken a horrifying turn. Nicholas chews slowly, a thoughtful expression spreading across his face as he savors the taste. Confused by the lack of screaming, the larger bully stammers, What? A chilling smile finally breaks as Nicholas declares with pure delight, it's sweet. The tormentors fall back in utter shock, Philippe screaming, liar, as the power dynamic instantly shatters. In a terrifying reversal, Nicholas grabs his bully's jacket, his voice low and demanding, gimme more. He calmly inspects another dead ant, ready for his next meal, as his bullies can only stare in absolute horror. Without hesitation, Nicholas pops another ant into his mouth, the crunch echoing in the sudden silence. His tormentors recoil in absolute disgust, their tough exteriors completely shattered by the bizarre sight. A serene smile spreads across his face as he calmly declares, it really is sweet. Refusing to believe it, the larger bully snarls a threat, his own fear twisting into misplaced anger. He turns to his friend, desperately trying to find a logical explanation for this impossible situation. In a moment of sheer madness, the bully decides to test the theory himself, shoving the insects into his own mouth. He chews with a grimace, the foul taste a stark contrast to Nicholas's blissful expression. The realization dawns on them all as the bully's face contorts in disgust, while Nicholas just watches, unfazed. But then, his disgust melts away into a look of pure, unadulterated bliss, a terrifying new convert born from a single taste. The bully's shock turns to glee as he shouts, "Huh? It really is sweet," leaving his friend utterly horrified. But their bizarre ritual is cut short when a daycare worker storms in, demanding to know what they're doing. His voice echoes a stern warning that fighting only leads to extra punishment for everyone involved. And so, the three boys are forced to kneel in the hallway, hands raised in humiliation. While the others simmer with frustration, Nicholas remains unnervingly calm, his gaze fixed on something far away. Philippe can't hide his annoyance, muttering about how embarrassing it is to be caught. Surprisingly, the larger bully turns to Nicholas and apologizes, admitting he must feel wronged. But Nicholas's reply is chillingly honest. "Not really, I wanted to take my anger out on anybody." He looks them dead in the eyes, a cold glint in his gaze as he thanks them for giving him the chance. The bullies simmer in humiliation, forced to hold their hands up in the hallway. As part of their punishment, the larger boy grumbles his name, "I'm Jean." Beside him, the blond one forces out his own name, "I'm Philippe." Then Nicholas calmly states his name, his expression unreadable. "We know." The bullies snap back, their patience wearing thin, but a small, knowing smirk plays on Nicholas's lips. This simple act of defiance pushes his tormentors to their breaking point. Suddenly, the tense silence shatters, as all three of them begin to laugh uncontrollably. Their strange moment is cut short by a furious shout. "Who's laughing when you're supposed to be standing punishment?"